Which is what if Naruto became the Shadow Dragon Monarch loved by Anko, Tsunade, Konan, Kaguya and Kushina. Part 4. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Hot Spring Country. 2 months later. Darui sighs and takes a seat at a long table with 20 chairs as Samui places maps and information on Glacier Island at each seat. He is wearing a black suit with a dark blue dress shirt and black tie. Also seated at the table were Olivier and Alex Louis Armstrong from the Alchemist Guild, both agreeing to join the expedition with Darui and Suzaku Yu from the Four Saint Beast Guild. Across from Darui were the representatives from Snow Country and members of a special hunter force under the command of Najanda Lubbock. The first is Quicksword Ilina and has long pale hair with silverish eyes, elf-like ears and an aquiline nose. She wears a thin white bodysuit under a dark leather outfit. Next to Ilina is one of her students known as Phantom Miria and she has long, pale brown hair styled in a razor shag cut with silver eyes. She wears the same bodysuit as Ilina but wears a military dress outfit with knee-high boots. Do we know who will be coming and which country? Alex asks. He is muscular man with defined muscles and physique, a bald head save for a single lock of curly blonde hair hanging from just above his brow and sports a thick, blonde handlebar mustache, accentuating his strong, cleft chin and wears a blue overcoat, pants, and black boots with a yellow fourragère. The prestige of finally putting Glacier to rest will not be looked over, Olivier says. She has pale skin with waist-length blonde hair that curls at the ends with parts of her hair covering her right eye, which are light blue with long eyelashes and fully lips. She wears the same outfit as brother but has a black coat with a white fur collar. Still Konoha could back out once again, Suzaku says. He has long shoulder-length orange blonde hair that is split down the middle with 2 red bangs, blue eyes and wears a suit. Regardless, Uzushio has agreed to aid us, Darui muses. This will be my first time seeing the infamous daimyo of Uzushio, Miria says. He's not someone to taken lightly. Rumors swirl around this young man and they have even reached our shore, Ilina says, as the doors of the conference room open to reveal Sasori and Kagura Naraku of Suna. Seems we are the first, Sasori says, wearing casual clothes. He has mousy red hair with a dreamy look on his face, something his daughter shares and grayish-brown eyes. It would seem so Sasori-san, Kagura says. She has strikingly red eyes and pointed ears with black hair done up in a bun, having 2 white feathers with a floral kimono. I did not think Suna would answer this. Especially with the death of Lord Mios, Darui says. But only 2 of you. Then again not many S-rank hunters in Wind, Suzaku says, a smirk on his face. Can you topple a nation? I wonder if you can. Sasori muses, a faint smile on his face. Before Suzaku could say a word the doors open again as Deidara Kanori, Hanmetu and Toyotomi Hideyoshi of IWA arrive. Quite the company him, Deidara says. He has slanted blue eyes and long golden blonde hair in a half ponytail with the rest hanging down freely and covering his left eye, wearing casual clothes. Han says. He wears a dark red sweater and black pants with a red scarf covering the lower half his face, his eyes are a light brown and he has a wide brim hat on his head. Toyotomi says nothing as he towers over Deidara and Han with his dark eyes scouring over the room, his brown hair in a top knot. He wears black slacks with a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up and tie. Please take a seat, Darui says and Deidara nods. Are the rumors true the son of Kiroi Senko will be coming to this conference? Han asks. He is. Lord Tsuchi impressed upon us to have him participate, Darui says, glancing to Samui. He's on everyone's lips Even Kuro-chan wants Iwa to work with him, Deidara says. That's Lady Tsuchikage, Hideyoshi corrects and Deidara waves his hand, dismissively. I didn't get a chance to meet him when he came to negotiate with the Kazekage but he did inspire one of my students, Sasori states. Gara-sama speaks well of him, Kagura says. Kukuku. Such young talent has gathered, Orochimaru says, standing in the doorway with Fugaku Uchiha. Seems you were right Darui, Suzaku says, as the Konoha group take their seats. Suddenly a cold chill goes up the spine of everyone in the room and they look to the doors to see Naruto and Tsunade. Naruto is wearing forest green jeans with black work boots, a black sweater with a long black coat black with light purple draconic patterns down the sleeves and 3 separated coattails with a purple lining. Seems we're the last to arrive or Kiri has yet to arrive, Naruto says. Tsunade is wearing form-fitting black pants with knee-high boots having a moderate heel, a white blouse with puffy cuffs and a black waist cincher to show off her chest. Kiri will not be attending. However they will provide us with ships, Darui says. Everyone's eyes were on Naruto as he takes his seat opposite Darui and facing the door, the infamous Mr. Unrated him, Deidara says. Naruto raises his arms in a shrug and a smile. I'm glad my reputation precedes me, he muses. It does. Son of the infamous Kiroi Senko, Hideyoshi says, his eyes on the Uzumaki daimyo. If I can begin. We have much to discuss, Darui says and clears his throat, bringing up some footage of Glacier Island. Glacier Island has been a stain on the great nations for many years. It is the site of an S-class break, which killed many of the inhabitants of the island and saw the death of Kaisarian Ryuji, Darui starts. The infamous Mirage swordsman, Naruto says. Indeed, the first expedition to the island was led by Hashirama Senju, but due to the betrayal of Madara Uchiha, they were forced to make a tactical retreat, Ilina states, which ultimately led to his death, Tsunade says. The Nadaime Reikage I lead the second with Iwa and Konoha, but they were forced to pull out due to the death of the Nadaime Hokage and resulted in the death of the Gold and Silver brothers, Darui continues, his gaze on Fugaku and Orochimaru. The loss of Lord Second was an unforeseeable event and we aided in the third expedition, Fugaku says. Which failed and leads to this fourth expedition, Naruto says, slipping a menthol into his mouth and Tsunade lights it for him. Yes, if you look at the photos before you, the island is awash with activity, Ilina states. Most would simply leave the island to itself, but, Darui says. What is this him? Deidara says, pointing to a photo of human-size figure. It's the source of why Glacier can no longer be ignored. We sent a death row team to the island and before their deaths. Remark the name Rigardo, Miria says, frowning slightly. The creatures on the island are known as Yoma, Ilina states and pauses to reflect. So these Yoma are demonic beasts from the dungeon break and have evolved perhaps, Tsunade says and Ilina slowly nods. These Yoma also have a tie to our country of Yuki and our former ruler Dodo Kazuhana, Ilina says and closes her eyes but opens them to reveal striking gold orbs. Each of them could feel the demonic aura coming off of Ilina. Dodo sent a team to the island with our special chakra armor and managed to capture several weak Yoma, she explains. Interesting. I take it he did experimentations, Orochimaru says, a glint in his snake-like eyes. He did. He experimented on numerous people and created what stands before you. If one infuses Yoma DNA into the body of a person, preferably a young child, but this process is unstable and kills many. Which was no issue to Dodo, Ilina explains. What about those who survived? Sasori asks. You gain heightened physical strength, speed, durability and regeneration with limited shapeshifting. However, if you exceed the limit your body can handle, you will turn into a Yoma or awakened being, Miria explains. Our eyes become a haunting silver. Thus our name of the Silver Eye Witches. Those close to awakening were shipped back to Glacier to die or evolve. If not for Najanda and her nitrate, this practice would have continued, Ilina says, her eyes returning to normal. So this Rigardo could be one of the experiments shipped off by Dodo, Kagura says. It is possible. Lady Koyuki found old records from her uncle and it is a plausible theory, Miria states, as Naruto blows a stream of smoke. So we have one or several intelligent beings on the island that could organize the demon beasts and set them loose, Naruto says. Which is why we need to go to Glacier and destroy them. Kurigakure will offer support in the form of ships for transport us and Yuki will send several of their hunters who are censors, Darui states. If these creatures are as intelligent as you claim, they will not sit idle as we approach, Sasori says. Which is why I am here, Sasori my man. I can provide aerial bombardment to allow landing crafts, Deidara says, with a smirk. Kumo's navy will use chakra cannons to shell the island as well, Darui says. Which will allow the ships to get close enough to unload our forces, Fugaku says and Darui nods. Correct. Once everyone is boots on the ground, we will move through the island to center and eliminate the Yoma, Darui explains. Are we allowed to take samples? Orochimaru says and ignores the twin glares of the Silver Eye Witches. We will not have a repeat of Dodo's insane experiments, Ilina says. I would agree with Ilina. Weapons and drops are one thing but desecrating the corpses of the dead is step too far, Naruto says but Zetsue, Querasha and Tsunade silently snort. Even though, you do it too. Make your soldiers, the three thought. I wouldn't make the same mistakes and commit such atrocities, Orochimaru says, attempting to hide his nefarious intentions. Will any other countries other the Five Greats nation participate? Fugaku says, shifting the topic away from Orochimaru. This conference is designed to be a preliminary preparation for Glacier. However, other nations will be informed. However, it will be stressed that S-classes are the best for Glacier, Darui states. What kind of timetable are we looking at? Naruto asks. Darui sighs and leans back in his chair with a look around the room, logistically speaking. To get ships, personnel and preparation, 6 months, he says. Can we afford such a timetable? Fugaku asks. We can. The Yoma have no way off the island at present and our country keeps a constant vigilance, Ilina says. We will do what we can to lessen the time but 6 months is what we are shooting for at present. Each country will be informed if the timetable is moved up, Darui says and calls an end to the meeting. Fugaku and Orochimaru are the first to leave but followed by the IWA contingent with Han glancing back to Naruto. Sasori and Kagura follow suit as Naruto rises from his seat with Tsunade in tow. "See ya," Naruto says, waving to Samui. "I do not trust Konoha. That Orochimaru gives off the same air as Dodo," Ilina says. "We'll make sure he's never alone," Darui says and both Silver Eye Witches nod. Naruto walks with Tsunade on his arm as they make their way to their hotel. "Quite the assembled group," she says. Naruto blows a small stream of smoke and was about to say something but he stops as Jiraiya is standing across of them. The toad beast has a sneer on his face as he stares at his favorite student's oldest son. "Brat," Jiraiya says and Naruto simply scoffs. "Pervert, if you have nothing to say other than to whine that my mother kept me from my dad's home, then go suck off your fellow beasts," Naruto says and Jiraiya has several bulging veins on his face as Tsunade giggles. "You ungrateful ba," Jiraiya says but freezes, as Naruto flexes some of his aura. "The ungrateful one is you thinking that I owe my father's memory to walk hand in hand with Konoha. I've never forgotten how you treated my mother like some common whore because she didn't immediately drop me off in Konoha and vanish from my life," Naruto starts and pulls from Tsunade. "Remember this toad, each day you grow weaker and each day I grow stronger. Hell, I have yet to hit my peak. I'm stronger than my dad ever was," Naruto continues, now nose to nose with Jiraiya. "Next time you appear in front me, you best come correct her," Naruto finishes, walking past and letting his threat hang. "Same goes for that bitch of teammate of yours," Tsunade adds, catching up to her man. Jiraiya grits his teeth in anger and vanishes with a leaf shunshin but it didn't go unnoticed as Han and Deidara heard the whole thing. "So he's not on good terms with Konoha, Deidara says. "It would seem so. It all the more helps Lady Kuratsuchi," Han says. "His birthday is about a month away and she's invited. Makes you wonder if Konoha is him," Deidara says, as the pair make their way to their hotel. Naruto makes his way to one of the bars in the hotel with a robe on but finds Sasori doing the same. "We finally meet Akasuna no Sasori," Naruto says. Sasori extends his hand and Naruto gives it a firm handshake. "It is nice to put a face to the name," Sasori says, as the pair take a seat at the bar. "How may I serve you gentlemen?" the bartender asks. "Vodka," Naruto says. "Whiskey on the rocks," Sasori says and the bartender nods. "Konkuro speaks very well of you," he adds. Naruto chuckles softly with a roll of his neck. "He seemed to gain some ideas from me," he says. "Indeed, he even inspired me, so you have my thanks," Sasori says. The bartender places the clear and liquor before them. "To inspiration," Sasori says, raises his glass and Naruto clinks it with his own. "Sayuri was impressive in her matches. I'm sure she was promoted," Naruto says, after downing his drink and calling for the bottle. "She did and she was. Your sister pushed her to reveal her Kekkei Genkai," Sasori says, nursing his drink. "I'm curious, is she related to the Sandaime Kazekage or the Sabaku?" Naruto asks, pouring himself another drink. "The former. Sayuri's mother was his niece but she passed in childbirth. I believe if I didn't have Sayuri, I would have fallen in a dark place," Sasori muses, downing his drink and asking for a second. Naruto glances to Sasori and in their last cycle their battle was amazing but it is good the gods are giving some a better life. "Naruto Uzumaki," a voice says and Naruto looks back to see a young man. He has messy white hair and a blue mask over his violet eyes. "I am Takenaka Hanbei and I serve Toyotomi Hideyoshi," he says. "And," Naruto says, "Hideyoshi-sama wishes to speak with you. He is awaiting you outside of town," Hanbei says and Naruto snorts. "Sorry but he won't lure me out of town to speak. If he has something to say, he can say inside the town," Naruto says and Hanbei frowns slightly. "Then perhaps a gate. There is B rank I can arrange for the two of you speak at your leisure," Hanbei says and Naruto down his second drink, pouring a third. "That sounds interesting. Would you like to accompany us, Sasori my man?" Naruto asks. "I'll have decline. It is long trip back to Wind but I do hope we can tackle a gate in the future," Sasori says, raising his glass and Naruto clinks it. "I look forward to it." "Well Hanbei-san, if you can set it up, I will agree. Now if you excuse me, someone else wishes to speak with me," Naruto says and both men see Samui, before Naruto excuses himself and leaving some money. Samui falls in step with Naruto as he returns to his room. "Yahiko misses you," he says. "He does he," Samui says. A smile graces Naruto's lips with a glance to the blonde. "You must have bewitched him," he muses. "Maybe but Yahiko's pretty cool," Samui says. "Well he'll need a date for my birthday next month," Naruto says. "I'll think about it. Also Darui would like a Espada to aid us in clearing a gate in Peach's country," Samui says. Naruto stops at his room and grasps the handle. That's fine. I'll send the Sannin, he says. That's cool. Good night. Samui says and bows a bit, as Naruto bids her good night as well and retires for the night. The next day Naruto and Tsunade were meeting Hideyoshi and Hanbei, the former garbed in samurai gear of a dark brown, dark red and white scheme. Hanbei himself wears a white coat with blue trim, purple pants and knee-length armored boots. So I am here, Naruto says. He wears white cargo pants with black work boots, a forming-fitting tank top with a spada on front with slip-on sleeves that attach by links of chain on the front and black, his harness on his waist with zetsue and his trench knives. I wish to see your medal, Hideyoshi says. HMPH. You don't believe the rumors about him, Tsunade says. She wears arm-length black gloves, with a white form-fitting sleeveless singlet having a spada across her. Black cargo pants and calf-length heeled boots. No, I do not, but this gate will gleam what I need to see, Hideyoshi says. Naruto shrugs and the four enter the gate, before finding themselves on the deck of a massive cruise liner. This is strange, Tsunade says, looking around and sees storm clouds in the distance. I would agree with you, Hanbei adds. Naruto and Hideyoshi were looking around as the clouds were around the ship, the eye of the storm, Naruto thought. The ship suddenly shudders and groans as the four go back to back in preparation for enemies. The deck buckles and cracks as several long, slimy tentacles with mouths on the end emerge. Hanbei draws his whip-like sword as Naruto draws his knives, while Hideyoshi and Tsunade prepare their fists. The tentacles screech and open their mouths with multiple of what appears to be like pedipalps snapping, before squirming forward with impressive speed. Music. This is a fight to change the world, Sengoku Basara. Shatter, Hideyoshi shouts, punching forward and obliterating everything in his path. Naruto whistles as he cuts through a tentacle with his knives, enhanced strength, he thought. More tentacles burst from the deck and the others spring into action as Hanbei's sword creates ice to freeze the tentacle, while Tsunade uses the deck as a medium to create wood bindings with her Mokuden. Naruto leaps and slices through the bound tentacles. There seems to be no end to them, he thought, landing and dodging another tentacle. The four continue to fight the seemingly endless amount of tentacles, but a loud roaring echoes around them as the storm seems to be moving closer to them. Now what? Naruto shouts, landing with a skid as the tentacle vanish back into the depths of the ship. It lurches violently and knocks Tsunade forward into Naruto as on both sides of the ship, large creatures rise from the depths akin to octopi but with large black eyes and wide mouths having rows of teeth. So those tentacles were theirs, Naruto says, dropping his knives and drawing zetsue. One of the tentacles spews out a slimy skeleton of a person with no meat on the body. It can devour you whole, Hideyoshi says, his eyes on one of the creatures. The storm is now over them now with violent winds and torrential rain as lightning dances in the sky. They should be the boss, Hideyoshi-sama, Hanbei says, and Hideyoshi clenches his fist, before punching skyward and blowing the storm clouds away. His power may rival my own, Tsunade thought, keeping her eyes on the second creature. A man who pierced the heavens, Naruto thought. Naruto Uzumaki. Show me your medal, Hideyoshi shouts, rushing the creature in front of him with Hanbei following. Naruto smirks and releases zetsue into her shikai in the form of a 6-foot katana with several links of chain on the hilt. You heard him. Let's end this, he shouts, shooting forward. Tsunade weaves signs and inhales deep to release a poison cloud of dark green as tentacles attempt to attack her. However, the cloud has a second function of releasing a parasite. It makes contact with a few tentacles and they actually start attack the other tentacles. Disappear, Hideyoshi declares, punching forward and erasing 3/4 of the beast's head. Dragon strike, shouts Naruto, swinging wide. The wailing azure blue dragon tears through the second beast with haunting destruction. Naruto lands with a smirk and rests zetsue on his shoulder, but suddenly all four were transported to a beach with a dense forest in front of them, but in the distance was a wasteland and a volcano. However, a loud roar bellows in the distance as birds escape and trees break as something is approaching them. Now what? Naruto declares. Song ends. Land of Fire. Konohagakure no Sato. Hiruzen stares at Orochimaru and Jiraiya's report from Hot Spring Country, but also seeing the perhaps roster for Glacier. Dodo Kazuhana combined demonic beast DNA with humans. Hiruzen says. Orochimaru nods with an amused smile on his face as Jiraiya stands by the window with his arms folded and a scowl on his face. Kukuku indeed, sensei. Of the two there, one of them is S-class, Orochimaru says. Interesting, Hiruzen says, dropping the report and picking up his pipe to light it with a little Kaden chakra. I will attempt to get some samples, but I feel I will be watched the entire time, Orochimaru says. Do what you can. If we could create our own unique hunters, it would be a boon to our country, Hiruzen says. So who will be going? Don't want to leave us to weakened, Jiraiya says. Kukuku. Fugaku and I will be enough. Kumo should provide the most because they are planning, Orochimaru says. Fugaku has a powerful Sharingan. Strong enough perhaps to get our hands on one of these awakened beings, Hiruzen says and Orochimaru smirks. Speaking of the Uchiha, have you found anything on Itachi? Hiruzen adds. Jiraiya sighs and shifts to a more comfortable position. Nothing. Our spies haven't seen him. Why did we let him leave? He says. The boy was too weak-minded. For all his power, he did not share our way of thinking. If you want someone to blame, blame his mother, Hiruzen says and Jiraiya scoffs. I'll keep my ears to the ground. Maybe he hid himself in the Heaven Tower, Jiraiya says, before leaping out the window. The Heaven Tower. Perhaps Jiraiya is right, Danzo says, standing in the doorway. The one-armed elder enters with a clack of his cane as Orochimaru rises from his seat to excuse himself. Dodo Kazuhana was keeping secrets from us, Hiruzen says, giving Danzo the report from the conference. He created such beings and did not share the information with us. The arrogant fool, Danzo says. We need to get our hands on such technology. It would be for the good of Konoha to have such, Hiruzen says and Danzo nods. Have our spies in the association found a red gate, Hiruzen adds. Perhaps, but as a roaming gate. Our spies are pinning down its patterns, but it does appear in Fire Country, Danzo says. Good. It would be best to do this before the glacier expedition, Hiruzen says and Danzo nods. Meanwhile Fuyumi is shopping for her brother's birthday, a dress for the party and a present for Naruto, but her brother was hard to shop for. Finding a dress was fairly simple, with a dark red dress with spaghetti straps and comes to just past her knees. She also goes with a black sweater and ankle-length boots with a moderate heel. What could I get Naruto? Fuyumi thought, walking through the market district. She checked clothing shops, weapons shops, but nothing seems to catch her eye. Fuyumi sees a smoke shop and a thought pops into her head, he does smoke a lot. Maybe some cigars or a custom lighter, she thought. She looks around the shop and again nothing really catches her fancy, but she looks at a line of Zippo lighters. You don't look like a smoker, a woman says and Fuyumi looks up. She has long and slightly curly black hair and dark eyes, wearing a black pencil skirt with stockings and a white dress shirt but unbuttoned to show off her chest. And no, but my brother is, Fuyumi says. So what does your brother smoke? Cigarettes, cigars, the devil's lettuce, the woman asks. Menthols and sometimes cigars, but I'm looking a lighter, Fuyumi says. Talia, then how a Zippo? They're stylish and can be customized, the woman says, pointing down. Fuyumi looks over the various Zippos of various colors and designs as Talia gives her a calculating stare. Does this brother have a name? Talia asks. Naruto Uzumaki, Fuyumi says and Talia arches an eyebrow. That makes you the Yondaime's daughter, Talia says. Not anymore, it's Fuyumi Yuhi now, Fuyumi says and Talia rests her cheek on her palm. Interesting. So any particular design for your brother? Talia asks and Fuyumi continues, but one catches her eye. It is matte black with raised dragon on it with red eyes, like it, Talia says. Yeah, how much? Fuyumi asks. It's 5,000 yen, Talia replies, grabbing the Zippo and letting Fuyumi inspect it. She runs her fingers on the dragon in thought, this would be good. Something simple, Fuyumi thought. I'll take it, it's for his birthday, Fuyumi says, placing the Zippo down and Talia smiles as she picks it up. I'll gift wrap it then, Talia says, as Fuyumi pulls out the money to pay for the Zippo. A few minutes pass and Fuyumi looks around the shop as Talia wraps the gift in a black box with a red ribbon. Here you go, Ms. Yuhi. I hope your brother enjoys his gift and tell him about my shop, Talia says and Fuyumi nods, taking the black and red bag with the gift inside. Fuyumi leaves the shop and people were starting to pay her no mind, something she rather enjoyed compared to being judged as the daughter of the fourth Hokage. Uzushio, Espada HQ. Naruto sits with his fellow Espada as they hold a meeting to discuss various things including the overview of the glacier expedition. Kushina is sitting across from her son with a scowl on her face. To think something like that was done under our nose, she says. You have a long reach but you can't be everywhere, Mum. Regardless, Kumo is helming this expedition. Each major nation will provide a minimum of 2 S-class hunters except Kiri. Which will provide ships, Naruto says. So who's going with you? Anko asks. Tsunade and Nagato, Naruto replies. You sure? I think Konan or Anko would be better suited, Nagato says, but Naruto shakes his head. You'll be fine. Plus we can test your armors, Naruto says. Kushina folds her arms in thought, but her son could tell what she was thinking about. I'll make sure to attach shadows to Orochimaru and Fugaku, Naruto says. You think he would attempt to steal one of these, Yoma? Mei says, causing both Naruto and Anko to nod. He would. Orochimaru and by extension Hiruzen will do anything for power. They even do it under the nose of their daimyo, Kushina says. Who's blind to everything around him if doesn't concern Fire Country, Naruto says. Well, he's lost his ally in Mio's, Kushina muses. Such shame that Lord Mio's died, but perhaps this a blessing in disguise as Wind Country can move ahead, Naruto says, as all of them suspect the mother and son were happy about this. Anyway, in 1 month is my Sochi's 18th birthday. Of the 5 great villages, the Tsuchikage will be attending, Kushina says, causing a few of them give her a look. Fuyumi and her mother will attending as well. They'll meet Konan in Wave about 2 days before, Naruto says. The banquet hall is almost done and it will look amazing. My Sochi's birthday is nearly here, Kushina says and goes into mommy mode, causing Naruto to sigh but smile. Anyway, Samui will also be attending and the Sannin will be aiding her in a gate in Peaches. She'll send Yahiko the details, Naruto says and Anko snorts, with a look to Yahiko. Also I'll be helping Akasuna no Sasori with a gate as well, Naruto adds. Ah, what about that gate in Hot Spring? Tsunade said it was weird, Kaguya says and Naruto makes a face, as Tsunade giggles. He said now what almost 10 times before we finished, Tsunade says, causing the Neo NUGC to giggle with Kushina makes a face, her hand over her mouth. It couldn't have been that bad, Nagato says but Yahiko snorts, seeing the look on Naruto's face. It probably was or it was tedious, Yahiko says. Everyone rises from their seats except mother and son to leave the pair to speak alone. Kushina levels her draconic purple eyes on her son's draconic blue eyes. In a month you will recognized as legal adult. I remember the day you were born. You didn't even cry. You looked at me as if you understood everything around you. Then the gods told me, she says. Did it change your opinion of me? Naruto says and Kushina shakes her head. No, you were my baby boy regardless if you lived a previous life where I died, Kushina says. Naruto rises from his seat and approaches his mother as she rises and gives her hug. Thank you for loving me and raising me, he says. Loving you is easy. Thank you for being born. My dear sweet boy, Kushina says and Naruto smiles, resting his head on her shoulder. Land of Wind, Sunagaku no Sato. Naruto blows a stream of smoke into the air as he looks at the gate. So what rank is it? He asks, glancing to Sasori. The redhead wears brown bodysuit with a tan flak vest, tan greaves and matching gauntlets. B rank, Sasori replies, glancing to Sayuri and the Sabaku sisters. The group were in the Demon Desert, which they use for the Chunin exams similar to the Forest of Death in Konoha. It is surrounded by a massive fortress wall and the terrain mostly being sand with poisonous cacti, rock formations, quicksand, sand currents, and a sand waterfall pit. We normally don't get gates in this area, Tamari says, approaching the pair. She wears a purple long-sleeve blouse with a high collar underneath a gray top, and a dark blue skirt with a split in the middle revealing her purple leggings, fingerless gloves and sandals. We are hosting the next exams. We cannot afford any breaks, Gaara adds. She wears a crimson long-sleeve blouse with a folded collar and a black top, black shorts with a front-open crimson apron skirt, mesh stockings and sandals with a large gourd on her back. That sure makes you different than Konoha, Naruto thought, as they enter through the gate. The group soon find themselves in a world of night, invariably wasteland with a red moon in the night sky. Sayuri covers her mouth at the sight of numerous skeletal corpses. How horrible, she says. Sasori brings out his Sandame Cage replica as his lazy expression becomes serious. We need to be ready for anything, he says. It seems I have gained some new test materials, a gravelly voice says. There, Gaara says, and all of them see a hooded figure floating above them. The cloak they are wearing is tattered and they have shoulder pauldrons with crescent moon attachments on the back, but their face is simply a skill with part of their face remaining. Are you the boss? Sasori says. I am the Lich Knight Cardam and you will be great material for me, the figure says. Naruto looks over the Lich and sees 2 powerful artifacts on its right wrist and around its neck. Lich are known for necromancy, he says, smirking at Cardam. The Lich raises its right hand and skeletal soldiers start to rise from ground. Indeed human, and you are surrounded my eternal army, Cardam declares. Sayuri and Gaara bring out their sand as Tamari brings out her giant fan. Futon. Gust dance, Tamari shouts, swinging her fan and destroying numerous skeletons, but they slowly put themselves back together. Setetsu Kaiho, Sasori declares, and the Sandame puppet brings out the iron sand as it breaks into thorns through skeleton warriors. Destroy them as you might. I have more enough to replenish my forces, Cardam declares and creates a large magic circle. I'll even bring out one of my stronger subjects, it adds. The snorting of a horse rises from the magic circle to reveal a headless knight on a black steed, its head in his right hand and a massive mace in its left. A Dullahan, Naruto thought, his eyes starting to glow purple and black shadows start to come forth. Arise, Naruto declares. Cardam narrows its eyes as Hati, Bone and several other nameless soldiers, but also Mercurius, causing its eyes to narrow. Dullahan killed a red hair man, Cardam shouts. The Dullahan raises its mace and gallops towards Naruto, but he meets him with a trench knife aimed for the horseman. It swings its mace and the weapons meet with a loud clank, before it swings its head like a second mace using the tassel on its helmet. Mercurius buffs the other shadow soldiers as Hachi roars loudly and bumrushes numerous soldiers as Bone swings his axe through a few. These soldiers can act independently, Sasori thought, using the Sandame's sand to cut through skeletal soldiers. Dullahan brings its mace down with a shatter of the ground, but Naruto dodges into a flurry of strikes, its armor taking most of the hits with some deep gashes. How is that possible? A mere human injuring one of my stronger subjects, Cardam thought. Naruto brings out Stormbreaker with a leap and channels energy into it. Return from whence you came, he thought, bring the axe down through the Dullahan to Cardam's shock. The Lich Knight hisses loudly and raises its hands wide as the skeletal soldiers collapse into pieces. You human will pay. Now prepare to witness my strongest subjects, Cardam roars. Form up, Sasori shouts, as 4 magical circles form and from it rise 4 skeletal dragons. You will not overcome these skeletal dragons, Cardam sneers. Sand tsunami, Gaara shouts, creating a wave of sand to push the dragons back. We'll hold them off. Go after the boss, Sasori shouts, as he and Sayuri bring out more iron sand. Naruto rushes towards Cardam and leaps with his axe raised. Come on big boy, he shouts, but another dragon crashes into him. Did you think it was simply 4? Cardam sneers, but Stormbreaker slams into its chest, breaking the amulet around its neck. No, I'll lose control, Cardam thought. Naruto appears with a shunshin and a delayed dropkick to Stormbreaker, driving the Lich into the ground with a thud. Chidori Iso, Naruto utters, severing Cardam's right arm at the wrist. My ambition, Cardam utters, before Naruto destroys its head. The skeletal dragons crumble and the gate opens as Sasori approaches Naruto. Since you killed the boss, they're yours, Sasori says. Naruto picks up the bracelet and amulet with a look to Mercurius. I'll put them to use, he says. Naruto creates some clones to search the area for anything of value as Naruto tests the artifacts with Mercurius. It seems to amplify its abilities and buff the others, he thought. So you have a secondary necromancer, Sasori says. Mercurius was a demon from the Demon Tower, Naruto says, dispelling his soldiers. How does it compare to Gates? Sasori asks, as they head for the exit. It wasn't easy to conquer. Each floor is different from the next with bosses. If I had to gauge their level, it would be close A-class Gates, Naruto replies, and Sasori's eyes widen slightly. A few hours later, Naruto is laying in a bed inside the K's mansion with his eyes on the ceiling. Sitting in his lap is Zetsue in a nightgown. What would the other says to you being in such a state? Zetsue says, giggling. Anko would have her way with Whis, Naruto muses. No doubt she would, Zetsue muses. Naruto sits up and rests his head in Zetsue's chest. Thank you for always being with me, he says. I am the other half of your soul. I will never leave you, Zetsue says, holding him like mother would a child. Land of Fire. Konohagakure no Sato. You called for Hokage-sama, Fuyumi says, and Hiruzen frowns slightly as Fuyumi doesn't use an affectionate tone with him anymore. The aged man leans back in his chair and lights his pipe. You are leaving today to attend Naruto's birthday in a few days, Hiruzen says. Mom and I will meet Konan in Wave and she'll take us to Uzushio, Fuyumi states. I hope you will pass our congratulations to him, Hiruzen says, and Fuyumi slowly nods. Did you get him a gift? He adds. I did. A custom Zippo from a shop called Talia's, Fuyumi replies, and Hiruzen cups his chin in thought, having seen the shop on his walks through the village. I'm sure he'll enjoy it, Hiruzen says, and dismisses Fuyumi. She bows a bit to him and turns on her heels to meet her mom at home, so they can leave to make their way to Wave Country. The pair would make good time to Wave, and it would be the next day when Konan would meet, ferrying them to Uzushio. We'll have to thank Kushina-sama for inviting us, Kurenai says. Fuyumi is Naruto's younger sister and unlike her other sibling is nice, Konan says. The journey falls into silence as Fuyumi admires the ocean, watching the dolphins riding alongside or seeing a few whales. She snapped a few pictures with her phone and filmed a little as well. They would reach the harbor of Uzushio like before and take the tram to the Cage Spire. Welcome back to Uzushio, Kushina says, sitting at her desk as Fuyumi and Kurenai bow to the Uzukage. Thank you for inviting us, Kurenai says. Fuyumi is Naruto's little sister and you are her mother, Kushina says, rising from her seat and approaching the pair. Unlike Kawaki, you care for your brother and I want to make him happy, Kushina says. Will we see Naruto before the party? Fuyumi asks, but Kushina shakes her head. He with Anko and his in-laws. They are doing a private ceremony for him, Kushina explains. The One-Horn Tribe, Kurenai says, and Kushina nods, smiling at the Ruby Ikunoichi. Their tribe has served my family for years and Naruto is my son. They are celebrating that their tribe is not forever linked to mine through his marriage to Anko. Daughter of their leader, Kushina explains and claps her hands. You'll be staying at the Cage Mansion in sight of the party. I'll take you once I finish a little paperwork. You can explore or head to Espada HQ, Kushina adds. I'll take them to HQ, Konan says and Kushina nods. The mother and daughter bow to Kushina and follow Konan to Espada HQ, which isn't far away from the spire. Will we meet anyone Espada? Kurenai asks. Kaguya maybe, she training some of our new members. I think Mei is with her. Tsunade is working right now. Shinki is here. Yahiko and Nagato are taking care of a gate. Thorkel, you are not ready for, Konan explains. They soon reach Espada HQ and make their way to one of the training area, finding Kaguya with Shinki, Hyuga, Iwabi, Wasabi and Kisame. Ho, is that the boss's little sister? Kisame says. Ah, Fuyumi, Kaguya says, approaching and hugging Fuyumi. Hello Kaguya, Fuyumi says. Were you all promoted? Kurenai asks Naruto's former team. We're a part of Espada now, Hyuga comments. We're frackin' right now and are assigned to a member of Espada, Wasabi explains. That's impressive. Which Espada are you assigned to? Kurenai asks. Hyuga is assigned to her boyfriend Shinki. Iwabi starts but Hyuga glares at him. Wasabi and I are assigned to Yahiko. What about Fuyumi? He adds, seeing her speaking to Kisame. She wasn't. My other genin Hinata Hyuga, Shikamaru Nara, Sasuke Uchiha and Kawaki were promoted, Kurenai says, looking to her daughter. They didn't even fight each other, Iwabi comments, as Fuyumi approaches. You guys up for a spar? Kisame challenged me to one, Fuyumi says. Sure, I've gotten stronger since the Chunin exams, Iwabi says and Fuyumi smiles a bit, causing him to blush slightly. This is quite the sight, Kurenai says. She is wearing a black dress with spaghetti straps and lace sleeves, neckline and shows off her fair skin. Fuyumi looks around at the decoration for her brother's birthday, the room adorned in dragon-like motifs with a throne on the raised dais. The guests were formal to semi-formal with herself wearing a dark red dress to her knees with a black sweater jacket and her hair down. I have to agree, Fuyumi says. The pair could see Shinki and Hyuga dancing, Wasabi and her family laughing and talking with several people. Wow, Fuyumi thought, seeing Yahiko with a very busty woman having blonde hair and a tight dress. Hello, I'm Nagato Uzumaki, Nagato says, approaching the mother and daughter. Hello, I am Kurenai Yuhi and my daughter Fuyumi, Kurenai says, shaking his hand and Fuyumi does the same. The three would make small talk as Yahiko approaches with his date Samui, introducing her and learns she was an A- class hunter from Kumo. You're Naruto's younger sister, Samui asks and Fuyumi slowly nods, sipping her drink but finds it's not as cold. Here, Samui says and uses her powers to chill the glass. Wow, thanks, Fuyumi says and Samui softly smiles. Is that the Tsuchikage? Yahiko says, pointing and Fuyumi looks to see Kuretsuchi. The young Kage is wearing a red cheongsam dress that shows off her legs and figure, arm-length white gloves and light makeup. Is she trying to seduce Naruto? Kurenai says but Yahiko snorts. Actually it's his mother, Yahiko whispers, shocking Kurenai and Fuyumi. Really? Fuyumi whisper shouts and both Sani nod. The light flicker a bit and the music dies down as everyone turns their attention to the dais. Music. Roman Reigns' tribal chief themed loop. Kushina walks onto the dais with a sinful red dress and heels with a sultry look on her face. Welcome one and all to my son Naruto's 18th birthday party, she starts, after tapping the microphone. Everyone starts to clap as the room slowly dims more and a spotlight appears above the double doors. May I present Uzushio's daimyo and my son. Naruto Uzumaki, Kushina declares. The doors shoot open and Naruto stands in fitted three-piece black suit with a orange dress shirt, black tie, matching gloves, silver-tipped boots and a haori draped on his shoulder with the Uzumaki spiral in orange. Fuyumi watches in awe as Naruto methodically walks in with the air of a ruler, people clapping for him as he makes his way toward the throne. You should go greet him, Anko says, standing behind her sister-in-law and Fuyumi looks back. Anko is wearing a white skirt to her ankles but a slit to her hips, black stockings with white lace-up boots to her calves. A purple dress shirt but unbuttoned enough to show her with a black low-cut corset vest and white gloves. I couldn't, Fuyumi says and Anko places her hands on Fuyumi's shoulders. You're his sister, so go, Anko says. Fuyumi looks back and slowly makes way towards Naruto as he stops, seeing her and turns to face her as people see her. Naruto holds out his arms and Fuyumi embraces him. Happy birthday, she says, patting his back. Thanks for coming, Naruto says, after pulling back and decides to pull Fuyumi along to the shock of some. What are you doing? Fuyumi says. You're my sister and you deserve some spotlight, Naruto says, waving to a few people and walking up the dais with Fuyumi. Naruto whispers to Kushina and she nods as he takes the microphone with a serious look on his face. People of Uzu and guests. Acknowledge me, he says, causing the people to clap. Kushina brings a chair and places it next to the throne, while the clapping dies down and she smiles at her son. Thank you. Thank you for coming to my birthday, but I would like to introduce someone. This is my younger sister Fuyumi Yuhi and her birthday is coming up soon. So I would like everyone to give a round of applause, Naruto says, shocking Fuyumi but also Kurenai in the crowd. Fuyumi covers her mouth as the people in front of her were acknowledging her and her coming birthday. Thank you Naruto, Fuyumi whispers and Naruto give her another hug. She clutches her brother for a few moments and he ushers her to sit next to him. I'll have to get you a proper present, Naruto says, taking a seat on his throne. It doesn't have anything large. Here I have your present, Fuyumi says, pulling the box from her sweater. Happy birthday, Fuyumi adds, handing him the small box. Naruto pulls the red string and opens the box to see a mad black Zippo with a raised dragon having red eyes. Nice. Thank you, he says. It's from a shop called Talia's in Konoha, Fuyumi explains and Naruto nods, thinking of checking out the shop and convincing the owner to move to Uzu. Anko comes up on the dais and kisses Naruto on each cheek but also does the same to Fuyumi. Happy early birthday, Anko says and Fuyumi smiles. Tsunade is the next to come up on the dais and is wearing the same outfit as Anko but with a black tie and forest green shirt. Happy birthday, Tsunade says, kissing Naruto's cheeks and doing the same to Fuyumi. Kaguya continues the process with the siblings and she has a white dress shirt and light purple tie. Konan is next and has a sky blue dress shirt with a white tie, last is Mei and a jade green dress shirt. Each member of Neo-NUGC stand on each of the siblings as many in the crowd clap but as a large cake is being wheeled up to dais, before everyone starts singing happy birthday to Naruto. He steps off the dais as the song comes to a close and blows out the 18 candles amid numerous cheers. Song ends. Kurenai watches with a soft smile on her face as Naruto cuts a small piece to eat but then another for Fuyumi as the cake is taken to distribute it to the guests. She sees a young woman with green eyes in a dark dress and another young woman or man with her approaching, wearing a dark suit and matching dress shirt to their date. Hello, I am Shizuka and this is my fiancé copyright Haku, the young woman greets. Hello, I am Kurenai Yuhi, Kurenai says. How do you know Naruto? Shizuka asks. A waiter brings a tray of wine and Kurenai takes one. I'm Fuyumi's adopted mother, she says, as Shizuka takes her own wine. Kurenai and Shizuka continue to talk as how Naruto saved her from a debt owed by her sensei but also helping in Kiri's civil war. After about 20 minutes of talking Kurenai continues to mingle but also drink wine but unbeknownst to her, she was being stalked by a superior predator. Kurenai takes a seat at a table with her 5th glass of wine and could feel herself getting a little tipsy. Enjoying yourself, Kushina says, approaching and taking a seat. Kurenai smiles with a nod and a sip of wine. Kushina-sama, thank you inviting. Fuyumi really needed this, Kurenai says. Kushina looks out on the dance floor and Fuyumi is dancing with Iwabi as Naruto has Mei with him, dancing as well as Anko is dancing close with Konan. Kaguya and Tsunade are doing the same but the sometimes switch between themselves are Naruto. She's Naruto's little sister and made the effort to get to know him. However, let's not talk about. Let's talk about you, Kushina says and Kurenai gasps a little. I'm nothing special, Kurenai says but Kushina leans closer. I think you are. You took in Fuyumi. You raised to be a strong young woman. Most don't do such a thing. Coming from one single mother to another. You've done a great job raising Fuyumi, Kushina says, as Kurenai softly smile with another sip of wine. The pair continue to talk about various things but Kushina would subtly lead Kurenai out, the Ruby-Eye Kunoichi giggling and using the redhead for support but Kushina would lead Kurenai to her bedroom, with another following behind them. Kurenai awakes with a start the next day in a bed she did not recognize but the bed was soft and very, very comfortable as she sits up but realizes she is. The raven hair beauty immediately covers herself with the royal purple sheets and looks around but she sees the form of the Tsuchikage to her right, and the red hair of Kushina on her left. Kurenai's eyes widen as the previous night events replay as she had been drinking, then being led away by Kushina to kissing and heavy petting. The Tsuchikage had joined them at the beginning and the three shared a night of sexual passion. I'm not bi but this is making a serious case I should be, Kurenai thought, remembering Kushina's technique and getting slightly aroused. She slowly moves to escape from Kushina's bed but the redhead awakes and pulls Kurenai back in. We're not done Kurenai-chan, Kushina says. At the same time their children were sitting to breakfast at a large table with the Neo-NUGC and the Sanin. Our mothers did the deed last night, Naruto says and Fuyumi nearly spits out her milk. What? Fuyumi says, wiping her mouth. Naruto slips a piece of pancake with some sausage on top into his mouth, My mother lured your mom into her bedroom and they had, he says, after chewing and swallowing. Mama is indeed wants what she wants, Anko says. Ah, so Fuyumi will call Mama. Mama, Kaguya comments, causing Tsunade to snort with a laugh. Kushina-sama is transparent in her desires, Yahiko muses but freezes as Naruto is staring at him. Breakfast would fall into silence as the small group eat their fill but one was too nervous to finish his meal. Kushina would show her face nearly around noon and asked Tsunade to check over Kurenai as she wore the younger woman out with her shenanigans. Fuyumi avoided looking Kushina in the eye for nearly the entire day and by that same token Kurenai couldn't look her daughter in the eye. This would eventually wear off by the next day as Naruto would spar with Fuyumi to take her mind off things but their time in Uzu would come to an end. It's shame you can't stay longer, Kushina says, licking her lips slightly. Kurenai and Fuyumi were at the harbor to take a ship bound for Wave Country, from there they would head back Konoha. We have to get back to our duties, Kurenai says, avoiding Kushina's gaze. Mom, stop undressing Kurenai with your eyes, Naruto says and Kurenai blushes brightly. But Naru-kun, she's so beautiful, Kushina whines and Naruto sighs. I can't refute that but don't you see that this is uncomfortable for her, Naruto says and Kushina huffs, walking away with a wave and a shake of her hips. Sorry about that, Naruto says and ruffles his hair, slipping a menthol into his mouth and lighting it with his new Zippo. I'll definitely come to Konoha for your birthday and we'll celebrate right proper, Naruto adds. We'll see you then, Kurenai says, giving Naruto a hug. I'll get you a good present too. You'll have to wait until after your birthday though, Naruto says and Fuyumi furrows her brow. I'll find you something special on Glacier Island, he adds and both of their eyes widen. There should be something high level on the island and I'll make it a gift for you, Naruto says. You don't have to do that, Fuyumi says but Naruto places his hands on her shoulders, with a soft smile on his face. I don't have to but I want to, Naruto says and Fuyumi hugs him tightly. The pair slowly pull and say their goodbyes to board the ship, unaware they are walking into danger and a trap set by their superiors. Land of Fire. Konohagakure no Sato. 2 weeks later Team 8 stand before Hiruzen as he explains the parameters of their coming C-rank mission to clear a gate. This I believe will be a fitting mission for our newest Chunin, he says. Kurenai glances to Hinata and the young Chunin has changed her mission gear to a light lavender, sleeveless kimono-style blouse with vertical lines, tied with a dark purple obi, fingerless arm-length gloves, navy blue shorts with thigh-high stockings and black high-heel kunoichi boots. I understand Hokage-sama, Kurenai says. She wears a red mesh armor blouse with only the right sleeve visible, a dress looking similar to bandages with a pattern on it similar to those of rose thorns with white shorts underneath along with kunoichi sandals and black leggings. We will not let you down Hokage-sama, Hinata says, glancing to Shino. The heiress is wearing baggy olive pants with kunoichi sandals, a black sweater under a bulky, high-collar jacket matching her pants, a beaked hood attached and sunglasses over her eyes. Pack for at least a 2-week mission, Kurenai says and her team nods, excusing themselves. Fuyumi one moment, Hiruzen says and the blonde stops followed by her mother. She wears a pair black cargo pants with knee-high boots and shin guards, a shirt similar to her mother's dress which resembles bandages having a pattern on it similar to rose thorns. Underneath is an orange mesh armor blouse with only the left sleeve visible and black gloves with metal on the knuckles. Fuyumi, I wonder if you'd consider returning to the Namikaze clan. I know the village has not been the most kind. Considering the events as of late I approved your decision on the faith you would come to your senses, Hiruzen says and Kurenai frowns. I don't regret it Hokage-sama. Jiraiya-sama opened my eyes. I don't deserve to be the Yondaime's daughter. So I'll settle with being Kurenai Yuhi's daughter, Fuyumi says and excuses herself, turning on her heels. Kurenai quickly excuses herself and follows her child as Hiruzen pinches his nose, no matter. Your sacrifices will bring Naruto into our sphere. Once you are dead, he'll want to connect with Kawaki and together they can show the other nations the power of the Yondaime left behind, he thought. 30 minutes later Team 8 were checking out at the main gate and making their way to the northern border. Fuyumi was not feeling comfortable about this gate as Hiruzen seemed to have this glint in his eye when speaking about it. The gate itself is near the Fire Country and Grass Country border but the entire journey, her sense of dread was rising but this was a simply C-rank gate and they had Kurenai as their leader. Team 8 reached the area of the gate and several people who didn't look like normal association personnel were milling about as they arrived, greeting Kurenai and explaining the gate. All right team, let's clear this gate, Kurenai says and the three nod. Kurenai takes point as Fuyumi follows behind but Shino and Hinata trail behind, however just as the mother-daughter pair step through. Anbu appear and to grab the heiresses as the gate explodes with energy and turns a hot red. This is for the good of Konoha, one says, codename Tiger. Finally they will be good for something, Hinata says, with a callous tone. Shino did not say anything, but she felt this was for the good of the hive, and going against the hive was not good. Music. Incantation. Part C. Bleach Ost Loop. W. Where are we? Where are Hinata and Shino? Fuyumi says, looking around. The pair were in what appears to be a stone hallway with multiple stone torches about every 2 feet and 7 feet above them. I don't know. The gate may have separated us, Kurenai says, not liking this situation one bit. The pair travel through the decorative hall, but it has no deviations and leads to a pair of doors with one hand print on each side. Do we go in? Fuyumi says, as Kurenai contemplates things and reads the name Kartenen. The Genjutsu mistress was not liking how things were turning out, but suddenly the door slowly creaks open, causing both to back away and Fuyumi to draw void in preparation. The room gives off an ominous aura and both did not want to enter, but their choice was forced. Fuyumi and Kurenai glance back as something bright catches their attention as a wall of blue flames is rapidly approaching from behind. Inside, Kurenai shouts, as both rush inside and the doors slam shut. What was that? Fuyumi says, as the torches illuminate the room and both see numerous statues of various types with steps leading down. There were people in full armor with various weapons, some even holding instruments from harp to a pan flute without armor. However, in the center of the two semicircle rows is a massive figure on a stone throne in stone robes, stone armor on its shoulders and chest, and a tall stone hat with a blank face. Is this the boss room? Fuyumi asks and Kurenai shakes her head, not knowing as they walk down the steps, but she sees another statue away from the others. It is hooded angel with wings and its face hidden, but a thin oblong-shaped purple gemstone shimmers with a tablet cradled in its arms. It has text written on it, Fuyumi says, as they approach it. Kurenai looks over the text and starts to read it. Commandments of the Kartenen Temple. First, worship the Lord. Second, praise the Lord. Third, prove your faith. Those who do not follow these commandments will never return alive, she reads, but Fuyumi suddenly grabs her. That huge statue moved its eyes, Fuyumi says, pointing. Kurenai slowly turns to where Fuyumi's is pointing and her ruby eyes widen in horror as the statue's eyes were glowing white hot, but she grabs her daughter to shunshin as heat blasts from the eyes, destroying a section where they were. What was that? Fuyumi says, looking at the statue, and it now has a cruel and demonic smile on its face. Kufufu. Sacrificial maidens have entered my temple, a voice says, and both whip around to find the source. Are you the boss? Kurenai shouts, keeping her eyes on the huge statue. One could say that, but I prefer architect, the voice says, now known as the architect. One of the statues with a long sword moves and Fuyumi grips void as her eyes glow. If you're the architect, then where are my other two genin? Kurenai says, as Fuyumi guards her. You are the only maidens to be sacrificed, the architect says, and this freezes both. The huge statue prepares to fire its heat vision once again, but both Kawarimi with logs as it erases another section. You maidens are skilled, but it will prove ultimately futile, the architect says, as more statues come to life. Futon. Severing void, Fuyumi shouts, tearing slashes into one statue with an axe and its helmet shaped like vents with horns. Kurenai casts a few illusions of various creatures, but both had to keep their eyes on the seated statue. Fuyumi uses Mikazuki no Mai to attack from all sides on the vent knight and manages to sever its sword arm. Futon. Kei's no Yeba, Fuyumi shouts, managing to sever its head. She doesn't have time to celebrate as a statue with a thin silt on its helm thrusts its spear at her. Fuyumi lands on the spear and rushes up it to use her wind scar to damage the statue's helmet. Hana Ninku. Flower Shuriken, Kurenai intones, firing several flower shuriken at a statue and dodges another's strike. We can't keep this up forever, Kurenai thought, but her breath hitches, seeing Fuyumi about to be struck by a statue with a mace. Time seems to slow as Fuyumi feels the rush of Kawarimi and her eyes widen in horror as Kurenai is struck by a stone mace, sending her crashing into the wall. Mom! Fuyumi roars, rushing towards her unaware she has now awakened her family's bloodline. The statue knights attempt to halt her, but now Fuyumi could see their movements and move accordingly using the shukuchi. Fuyumi reaches Kurenai and drops void to check her mother, but sees the state she is in. Kurenai's right arm is bent at an odd angle and she bleeding heavily from her head with several gashes on her body. What will you do now, maiden? Fight or die? The architect sneers. Fuyumi grabs void and draws Sakura dancer, unaware her blue eyes were now red with a single tomo in each. I won't let you kill my mom. Fuyumi shouts, holding both her swords and her body glowing golden. A statue with a horned helmet and 3 eyes raises its swords, but Fuyumi crosses her swords. Futon. Tatsumaki Hana no Shotatsu, she shouts, firing a tornado of Sakura petals and it crashes through the night. It destroys its head and it crashes back, but Fuyumi's eyes widen in horror as the heat was coming towards her and Kurenai. This is your end, maiden, the architect says, as a wide smile forms on the hooded angel as the blast erases Fuyumi and Kurenai, or so it thought. Music. Berserk, my brother, extended, definitive version, loop. Fuyumi gasps as something large was standing in front of her and blocking the heat blast. What? She says but gasps, as it was Ironside blocking the heat blast with a large shield. It dies down and Ironside glances back to give a thumbs up, but Fuyumi gasps as Naruto was now in front of her. He is wearing black cargo pants with black boots that have white soles and a tight white tank top with a spada across the back, and white gloves with black fingers. And Naruto, Fuyumi says, it seems you found yourself in a dangerous situation. Good thing I attached Ironside to you, Naruto says and looks back, but his eyes widen slightly. It also seems you awakened our father's cursed bloodline, Naruto adds. Fuyumi doesn't understand as clone pops to life next Naruto and goes to Kurenai, before vanishing with Shadow Exchange. Don't worry, Tsunade and the others will take care of her, Naruto says. But how? We're inside a gate, Fuyumi says, slowly getting to her feet. The hooded angel starts to rumble as 4 more wings emerge from its back as Naruto set his gaze on it. Remember, I am Monarch and that affords perks, he says. The hooded angel crushes the tablet in its arms with a grated hiss. You have arrived, traitor, it hisses, revealing itself as the architect. You know me, Naruto says, and the architect's smile widens as it sees the silhouette of Ashbourne overlapping Naruto. Yes, Monarch of Shadows, the architect hisses. Naruto flexes his aura and Fuyumi covers her face as her brother is about to summon his army, but the architect snaps its fingers. None of that, I want to test you. Not the servants, the architect says, as pulse echoes through the chamber and numerous glyphs glow brightly. Naruto feels himself cut off from his soldiers, but it didn't bother him. That's how you want to play, huh? He says, as his Sharingan comes to life. Fuyumi, if you can still fight, do so, Naruto says, looking back to show his eyes, and her eyes widen. The Sharingan. Then Fuyumi says and looks at her eyes through Sakura Dancer. Our old man has ties to the Uchiha, but I'll explain that later, Naruto says, lowering his stance and rushing forward. One statue with a wolf helmet swings a wide sword, but Naruto limbos under it and leaps with a rising knee to its head, cracking its helm as Naruto lands and connects with a roundhouse kick and shattering its head. Fuyumi channels her futon to void and moves to join her brother, going low and shattering a leg on a statue. It crashes to one knee and Fuyumi goes for its head with K's no Yeba. I see the paths, she thought, dodging another. Perhaps you need to face your god, the architect says. The large statue rises from its throne and fires another heat blast at Naruto, but he vanishes, shattering several more statues with Zetsue now in his hand. Awaken, Naruto says, going Shikai. The former captain swings his black claymore downward and through another statue. I'll need to deal with him, he thought, seeing the wide and cruel grin on the giant. Naruto rockets forward as the ground shatters and closes the gap with the giant as it raises its foot, bringing it down, but misses Naruto as it spiderwebs the ground. It has a look of shock and confusion as Naruto appear near its left shoulder. Wind Dragon Dance, he shouts, cutting into its face with numerous deep cuts. You countered your god in such a manner, the architect says, shifting its gaze to Fuyumi. Ikatsu echoes out and the architect whips its head to see the giant on the ground with half its face broken. Naruto lands and rockets forward with his quicksword, shattering numerous statues to appear in front of the architect, as it starts to clap with a wide grin on its face. Incredible. However, things are not over, the architect sneers. Naruto narrows his eyes and glances to Fuyumi. Fuyumi, move back towards the door and don't move, he says. I can help, Fuyumi says, but Naruto shakes his head. This one is too much for you, Naruto says, and Fuyumi slowly nods, making her way up the steps. Naruto raises his right hand and surrounds his sister with his barrier to keep her safe. So then, architect, he says. The architect's wings shifts into arms as it vanishes and Naruto gets his right forearm up as a fist crashes into him, sending Naruto crashing into the far wall. Naruto, Fuyumi shouts but slams into an invisible wall. Naruto emerges from his indention in the wall and rolls his neck a few times. Ho! You got some bite, he says, a smile on his face. The architect dashes forward with an innumerable flurry of blows to keep Naruto rooted place, but its eyes widen as the blows were being held off by Naruto's quicksword. Naruto passes through the architect's blows and connects with a punch to its face, sending it sliding across the ground, but it trembles as part of its face falls to reveal glowing blue skin. You still fight like a human, traitor, the architect hisses, looking up and its face cracking more. Naruto dashes forward, but the architect raises its arms and several of the broken knights raises, before the architect whips its arms inward and the pieces fly toward Naruto. Darkness Dragon Dance, Naruto shouts, swinging and creating several black slashes to shatter the stone pieces. The architect then raises its 8 arms and lifts numerous weapons from 2 swords, 2 axes, 2 spears, a mace and a club. I will destroy you in their honor, the architect shouts. It flies up and rockets down, but Naruto backsteps as it crashes to the ground into a flurry of swings with its various weapons at a speed most could not see. This is a fight on a completely different level, Fuyumi thought, watching her brother parrying and countering with a speed she couldn't even keep up with. The side of the architect's face opens up as its eyes widen. He's dodging and countering faster and faster, it thought, as one of its arms flies off. The remaining intact statues and the giant slowly rise to their feet as the architect slides back, its wide eyes on Naruto with his form hidden by shadows but his glowing eyes large. What's wrong? I thought you were to destroy me in their honor, Naruto says, mocking the architect. How dare you? The architect shouts. Naruto rockets forward and leaps over the swings of architect to go for the giant as it swing down, crashing into the ground, but Naruto runs up its arm. Hado 63 Reikoho. Naruto shouts and thrusts his right hand forward, as a large electric yellow blast detonates in the giant's face. It blows off part of its face and it crashes into a wall as Naruto lands with a crack and rushes the architect once more. It tries in vain to withstand the onslaught from Naruto as more of its arms were sheared off. Dragon Moon Strike. Half Moon, Naruto utters and Zetsue glows as he tosses her forward. Fuyumi gasps as Zetsue splits into 6 swords and Naruto dashes forward and creates 6 after images with each strike until the architect crashes into the ground with no arms and only part of its upper body. Naruto drives Zetsue into the architect's chest with his Sharingan glowing purple. Why you may have W1 but T they will destroy. Why you Monarch of Shadows, it says, but Naruto leans closer, his left eye smaller than his right with a smile on his face. They can try. Dragon Strike, Naruto says, as blue energy surges from Zetsue. The architect screams as it explodes with blue energy in the form of a wailing azure dragon. The other statues slowly start to crumble as Naruto turns on his heels and makes his way towards Fuyumi, that they are probably the other monarchs, Zetsue says. Oh, it's them and I look forward to crushing them, Naruto thought, passing through the barrier and Fuyumi slams into him. Song ends. The Bot Association personnel stand outside the red gate as Hinata was with them as she wanted to see proof of their death. The gate suddenly surges and slowly starts to dispel, indicating it was closing, and Hinata lets a smile grace her lips. Serves the two of you right. Konoha comes before everything, Hinata says. One of the Anbu that stopped her approaches. You and the Aburame heiress will be escorted back. Inform the Hokage of their deaths. He will contact the brother, she says. I do not doubt the Hokage's thoughts, but how will this convince Uzumaki to reaffirm an alliance with us, Hinata says. I do not know, but this is the will of the Hokage and for the will of fire, the Anbu says. Unbeknownst to all of them, Fuyumi hears every word from inside Naruto's barrier. The Hokage did this, she says, her eyes wide and flickering. Naruto places his hands on Fuyumi's shoulders. Focus on that later. We should check on Kurenai, he says. Why yeah, Fuyumi says, glaring at Hinata as they vanish with shadow exchange. Naruto and Fuyumi appear in a bedroom as Tsunade was checking Kurenai. Mom, Fuyumi says, rushing to her right side. She suffered a nasty concussion. Broken arm and several gashes, but she'll survive, Tsunade explains, and Fuyumi nods with tears in her eyes. Fu says, landing on Fuyumi's shoulder. Fuyumi takes the white fox in her arms as Naruto gets a chair for her. This too much. Too soon, she says. The Hokage has been planning this for some time, Kushina says, entering the room. Fu hops from Fuyumi's lap and makes her way to the redhead, but Kushina beckons for the fox to turn around and go back to comfort Fuyumi. What do you mean, Kushina-sama? I know the Hokage wanted me to get close to Naruto but to send us into a red gate, Fuyumi says, as Fu hops into her lap. He wants Naruto to walk hand in hand with Konoha and Fire Country. Naruto is the son of their oh-so-famous Yondaime Hokage. When I announced such, Hine and Hiruzen called me to the palace to whine about the fact that he wouldn't be living in Konoha or Fire Country, Kushina explains. I remember you talking about it, Fuyumi says, remember first coming to Uzushio. Uzushio wasn't as strong as it is now. I had yet returned from the tower and the country was weak from this. However, when I left the tower and returned, they assumed I would leave Naruto to them, Kushina explains. All because our father, but I would have been born at that time, Fuyumi says. True, but they wanted a male heir. It's the reason you were left in the orphanage. It's why they are doing everything to get Naruto walk in lockstep with them. They thought by killing you, it would make Naruto want to connect with Kawaki, Kushina says. However, my mother name is the Summer Queen and she has a long reach. Nothing goes on in Konoha that she doesn't know about, Naruto comments. Kushina approaches Fuyumi and kneels to look into her blue eyes. I've known about you for some time, but I kept my son from because I wanted to see what sort of person you would be, Kushina says. And you exceeded her expectations, Naruto says. So what happens now, Fuyumi says. Your teammates need to return to Konoha and confirm to him that the two of you are dead. Then he'll need to contact me, Naruto says. Think he'll announce that the pair were killed, Tsunade says, as Naruto cups his chin thought. Perhaps, but he may not, as if he learns they are alive. Hine may come down on them, Naruto says. Hine isn't foolish enough to try and force this issue. Once word spread that Fuyumi and Kurenai are alive, Kushina says. For now we wait. However, Mom and I will tell you everything surrounding your birth and life, Naruto says and furrows her brow. Fuyumi would learn that she has a living grandfather in Danzo, who disowned her mother despite becoming pregnant by the famed Yondaime. How Konoha intended to use her, but having Naruto out and revealed to be the Yondaime's son derailed their plans. She would also learn their father is the grandson of the infamous Madara Uchiha, thus their Sharingan eyes, and how Hiruzen kept this a secret from the village. Kurenai would wake up a day later and Fuyumi hugged her mother tightly, telling about everything Kushina told them. This infuriated Kurenai and she asked Kushina but Naruto for asylum once things were revealed. Something the mother and son agreed, as Konoha would contact Naruto to speak to him about a concerning issues. Naruto stares at the scroll on Hiruzen's desk with a sour look on his face. Inside are Fuyumi and Kurenai's belongings, Hiruzen says. Naruto takes the scroll as Hiruzen has a fake ashamed look on his face. I am sorry, your lordship. Losing both Fuyumi and Kurenai is a blow to my heart. She was the daughter of our Yondaime despite leaving the Namikaze clan. Her death will sweep across Konoha, Hiruzen says. Stop patronizing me, Sarutobi. You're insulting my intelligence with this act, Naruto says and Hiruzen blinks. Act, your lordship, we had no idea that the gate would act in such a manner. Their deaths were unforeseen. We were fortunate to save Shino and Hinata, Hiruzen says. Naruto slicks back his hair with a sigh. It must be my age. You, the late Mios, Hine, you all seem to want to look down on me, he says and Hiruzen narrows his eyes. Naruto then clears his throat with a smirk on his face. I can't believe that bitch kept Sensei's son. Careful, Kakashi. Kushina is known as the Summer Queen and her reach is long, he says and Hiruzen's breath hitches. You should also know I've known about Fuyumi for quite some time and your plans for her, Naruto says and Hiruzen gnashes his teeth. Even if you do, it changes nothing. That useless girl served her purpose. We have Kawaki to be our pillar as the true son of our Yondaime, Hiruzen says but Naruto smirks, pocketing his hands. Unlike me, well, I'll be sure to tell Fuyumi how you really feel about her, Naruto says. Hiruzen's eyes widen a fraction as the monarch grins. You really think I would let them go into harm? How do you think the gate was closed? Not from them dying. I closed that red gate, Naruto says but snaps his fingers. You said my mother's reach is long. Let me show you how long. Neko, Kumo, Mantis, Naruto says and Hiruzen seizes, as three of his closest Anbu appear next to Naruto. Neko removes his mask to reveal messy purple hair and chocolate eyes. Kumo removes her mask to reveal a young dark-skinned woman with golden eyes and red hair. Mantis removes his mask to reveal a young woman having a sickly face and brown hair with dark eyes. Yugao, Karui and Hayate were that close to you. Here's something else, Naruto says and touches their shoulders, causing each to vanish with a flash. Anbu, Hiruzen roars and several Anbu appear to stab Naruto, as his eyes morph to his Mangekyo of a starred pinwheel. The blades simply phase through Naruto, much to Hiruzen and their shock as Naruto closes the gap and slams his hands on the desk. As you can clearly see, I possess those famed eyes. You and that ward of a student attempted to keep secret from the world, but especially the Uchiha, Naruto says and flexes his power. Hiruzen's heart skips several beats as Naruto's glowing eyes bear a hole into his soul, while the Anbu's hearts stop and they collapse. I'm curious about the power of your three beasts. If they want test their mettle like they did against Hanzo, I'll meet them at the Valley of End in 1 month's time. Oh, and one more thing. Arise, Naruto says. The corpses of the Anbu twitch and shadow variants rise to serve their master, before melting into his shadow and Naruto sucking himself into his eyes via Kamui. Hiruzen sits stock still in his chair but he shoots up, slamming his fist down and shattering his desk with rage in his eyes. Land of Fire, Konohagakure. Hiruzen sits with pure rage on his face with his aura wafting around the room as Danzo stands opposite him with a blank look on his face. He challenged the three beasts, Danzo says. The wizened Hokage clenches his right fist under the desk. He did. He and his bitch of mother had Anbu ready to kill me. Hiruzen says. What's worse is he has the Mangekyo Sharingan. This puts the Glacier expedition in jeopardy, Danzo says. Hiruzen shatters his left arm rest with his fist. We can't afford to pull out again. Konoha cannot look weak, he says. I did not say for us to pull out. However, we need to be cautious. We have a month to prepare. Impress upon those three, to do whatever it take to injure him or draw more of his abilities, Danzo says, before leaving Hiruzen's office. The aged Hokage could not trust his own Anbu but had his secretary call for his 3 beasts, his legacy, proof of his power. Several minutes pass and the 3 beasts arrive but could tell their sensei was very upset. What is wrong, sensei? Shirahoshi says, slightly upset to be pulled away from quality time with Kawaki. The red gate has been resolved, Hiruzen says, lighting his pipe to calm himself down. So they're dead, huh? Jiraiya says, but Hiruzen crushes his pipe in anger. No, they are not. Somehow Naruto managed to save them and close the gate. What's wrong? Worse is he knew what we were planning, Hiruzen says, tossing the broken pieces aside. How could he know? Shirahoshi says, his bitch of a mother, and she had assassins ready to kill me. My own Anbu, Hiruzen shouts. Then what has Naruto-kun done to upset you this much, sensei? Orochimaru says, curious how Naruto has gotten under Hiruzen's skin so much. He revealed strange abilities similar to a necromancer, but he has also challenged the 3 of you, Hiruzen says. A necromancer. Interesting, Orochimaru says. That brat is daring to challenge us, Jiraiya says. Why does he want to challenge us? Shirahoshi asks. Hiruzen leans back in his chair and attempts to calm down once again. He was vague, but you have 1 month to prepare. Do whatever it takes to draw more of his abilities out. We need to be prepared for Glacier, he says. We will, sensei, Orochimaru says, before the 3 beasts excuse themselves to continue their vices and not prepare for their fight. If things get back to the daimyo. No, I can get ahead of this, Hiruzen thought, having his secretary call Hinata to his office to discuss things. She will do as ordered and will impress upon the Aburame heiress to do the same, Hiruzen thought, lighting a cigar in place of his pipe. Soon his office door would open as Hinata steps inside. You called for me, Hokage-sama, she says. Yes, Hinata, and it concerns Fuyumi and Kurenai, Hiruzen says, and a soft scowl forms on Hinata's face. Why speak of the dead, Hokage-sama? Hinata says. Because they aren't dead, Hiruzen says, and Hinata's eyes widen. But Hokage-sama, I saw the red gate close. That means both died, Hinata says, but Hiruzen raises his hand. Naruto somehow involved himself, saving them both, Hiruzen says, and Hinata clenches her left fist. For now inform Sasuke but the other rookies that Fuyumi and Kurenai have been permanently transferred to Uzushio, he adds. What about Kurenai's position as Jonin lead? Hinata says. For now Shino will attach to Team 10 and you will be with Team 7, Hiruzen says. Yes, Hokage-sama, Hinata says, bowing a bit and excusing herself to leave the Hokage to wallow in his rage. Land of Whirlpools, Uzushiogakure. Fuyumi slowly kicks the water of Naruto's pool as she watches her brother swim laps. Across from her were the Neo-Nugc sunbathing with someone named Samui. The blonde stares as Samui is nearly or equal to Tsunade's heaving bosom. Wow, Fuyumi thought. Footsteps catch her ears and she looks back to see Kurenai in a one-piece dark red bathing suit and a white sarong around her waist. How are you feeling? Kurenai asks. I'm all right. What about you? Fuyumi replies, as Kurenai takes a seat next to her. Much better. To be honest, I feel as if a weight has been lifted. Konoha has been my home all my life, but coming here has changed my perspective, Kurenai says. Fuyumi looks up at the sky and sees a few clouds with one the shape of a fox. I can agree. No one is comparing me to my father. Even though I am the little sister of Naruto Uzumaki. The people see me, she says. One of the Uzumaki tenets is family, Kushina says, wearing a scandalous red bikini with a see-through shirt and a tray of lemonade in her hands. She places the tray down and pours them each a glass of lemonade. Most hidden villages and especially Konoha like to preach that everyone is family, but to be honest, the village must come first, Kushina says. We were taught the will of fire and that the village is one large family, Kurenai says. That may been the case in time of Hashirama Senju, but that changed once he died. One of his brother kept up that tradition but his other brother perverted it. Something passed down to the Sandame, Kushina explains. It is why the Senju splintered. Tobirama and Itama Senju had clear differences in their brothers' words, Naruto says, emerging from the water. He slowly channels flames through his body and Fuyumi gasps as the water turns to steam. Being part dragon has its perks, Naruto says. Is that the reason the Senju came and some remained in Konoha? Kurenai says, and Naruto slowly nods. Uzushio has always had a new beginning sort of vibe to it. Several races from the Heaven Tower came here. Even clans from other countries as well, Kushina says. You'll get to meet them as time passes, Naruto says, but feels several eyes on him. I thought you all were supposed to be training, he shouts. Fuyumi covers her mouth as she sees Anko and Tsunade bolt from their chairs. What about you? Don't you have that expedition? Fuyumi says. That's still a few months away, Naruto muses, as Kaguya approaches with a tin of cookies. I told them not to stare, Kaguya says, offering a cookie. No you didn't, and why is Samui here? Naruto says. Yahiko invited her, Kushina says and Naruto slicks back his hair. Of course he did, Naruto says and rolls his neck. Fuyumi. How about I introduce you to the in-laws, he adds. Are you sure? Fuyumi says and Naruto nods. It'll be fine, plus you can meet the dreaded Kyuubi, Naruto says, wiggling his fingers and Kushina snorts, stifling her laughter. Fuyumi looks around in awe the scenery around the tribe's village. So your father-in-law is the leader, she says, riding her own summon horse. Naruto slowly nods with a stream of smoke. He's known as the martial god in the tower but Anko calls him her. Can't keep it in his pants dad, he says and Fuyumi covers her mouth, laughing. The pair slow their horses and dismount as Naruto dispels them while a few of the tribe greet him but look over Fuyumi. They don't get many outsiders, Naruto says, as they make their way into the village. A few of the children wave to Fuyumi and she waves back, causing a few older people to wave as well. The pair soon reach the main house as Ento and Enya were coming outside. What are you doing here and who's that, he says. This is Fuyumi, my sister, Naruto says and Fuyumi bows at the waist. This is Ento and Enya, Anko's twin brother and sister, Naruto adds. You do look like Anko, Fuyumi says and Enya slowly nods. Tell me, are you the one who Naruto Uzumaki sent the sword techniques to? Enya asks and Fuyumi nods, smiling. They helped me greatly, Fuyumi says and Enya smiles with her sleeve covering her mouth. As the old man in, Naruto asks. He had some business in the tower, Ento says and Enya leans closer. Plus mom is mad at him, Enya whispers. Is that Naruto-kun? Emi shouts, from inside. Have fun, Ento says, as Enya follows him. Naruto and Fuyumi enter the house to find Emi sitting at the low table, looking nearly 6 to 7 months pregnant. Who's this? Emi asks. Fuyumi Yuhi. Ma'am, Fuyumi says, bowing. She's my little sister, Naruto adds, as they sit across from her. Anko didn't want to come, Emi asks. She's doing some training, Naruto replies and Emi slowly nods, picking up a cracker. Naruto creates a clone to get himself and Fuyumi some tea as Emi looks over Fuyumi. So you're from Fire Country, Emi says. Yes, but I've moved to Uchiha with my mom, Fuyumi says. Oh, that's so nice. You definitely need to go out sailing. The dolphins, the whales, the whirlpools, so amazing, Emi says and looks to Naruto. You also need to take her to the Sakura forests, she adds. I plan to, but I wanted to introduce her to the family, Naruto says, as Emi rubs her belly. Are you having a boy or girl? Fuyumi asks. Twins girls, Emi says, softly. Naruto Uzumaki. Several voices shout and Fuyumi looks to see 5 children running towards her brother. Naruto quickly makes 2 clones to block as he shunshuns to grab Fuyumi. See you later, he says, before they vanish and Emi giggles. Why did you run? Fuyumi says, as they appear among numerous sakura trees. Naruto runs his fingers through his mismatched hair. Anko's younger siblings are a bit much, he says. So the Kyuubi lives here? Fuyumi asks, as they start walking and Naruto nods his head. He settled here some years ago and had numerous children. 2 you've met already and he also established a sanctuary for other races, Naruto explains. Were they the foxes with Anko? Fuyumi says and Naruto nods but stops, seeing Amagi sleeping in the lap of a young woman. She has long white hair with white fox ears, wearing a blue multicolor kimono with a white pleated skirt and stockings. Who's she? Fuyumi asks. Her name is Shinano, a deep voice says and Fuyumi freezes, before slowly looking back to see Kurama and Isobu. Fuyumi meet the Kyuubi no Yoko and the Sanbi Kamaheim, Naruto says. Hello, Isobu says, bowing a bit. So what brings you here? Kurama asks. Naruto slips a cigarette into his mouth but doesn't light it. I wanted Fuyumi to meet one of the 9 in person but also the Primera Espada, he says, causing Fuyumi's eyes to widen. Kurama scoffs and approaches Naruto to grab his face as if to kiss him but Naruto covers his mouth. What are you doing? Naruto says. What's wrong? I can take a female appearance and let you make love to me, Kurama says, running his hand down his bare chest. And Fuyumi gasps loudly. I have more than enough to satisfy me, Naruto says. Your loss. So this the Yondaimi's second child. She has potential, Kurama says. Naruto rests his hand on Fuyumi's head with a smirk. She's my sister after all. Besides, she awakened her Sharingan, he says, and Kurama tsks. Another one, Kurama says. Suya, father, auntie, Shinano says, now awake and carrying Amagi. The little fox girl reaches out for Naruto and he takes her but her gaze drifts to Fuyumi. Hello, Amagi says, shyly. Hello, I am Fuyumi Yuhi, Fuyumi says and extends her hand. I'm Amagi, Amagi says and gently shakes Fuyumi's hand. Kurama leads the group to a Shinto-style temple and Shinano goes to take a nap under a tree as the others continue to the western portion of the temple, where Akaji and Kaga were sitting under a large tree. Naruto-kun. Naruto, the pair says in tandem. Kurama lays down on the large blanket and Isobu takes a seat next to him. So you'll be heading to Glacier in a few months, he says. It seems to be the case, Naruto says, letting Amagi down and taking a seat. Akaji moves a tray next to Naruto with sake and some snacks as Fuyumi sits next to him. It has been a stain on the 5 great nations. It's humbled the likes of Hashirama Senju and other great hunters, Naruto says, taking a sip of sake from a small cup. Maybe it will humble you, Kurama says and Naruto scoffs. I plan on finding a present for Fuyumi, Naruto says. My birthday present, Fuyumi says. Pretty much, there have to be drops and weapons left behind. So I'll find something fitting for you, Naruto states. Amagi approaches and takes a seat in Naruto's lap for him to feed her snacks. When is your birthday, Fuyumi? Kaga asks. In about 3 weeks, December 29th, Fuyumi replies. We're planning a small get-together. Nothing as elaborated as mine, Naruto says. Is she not turning 18 as well? Akaji says. That may be true but I want something small. Plus I only a few friends here in Uzushio, Fuyumi says. Amagi moves from Naruto's lap and takes a seat in Fuyumi's lap. Can I come to your birthday? Amagi asks. Sure. Fuyumi replies, smiling softly. Happy birthday Fuyumi. Several shout, clapping loudly. Fuyumi sits at long table with a triple-layer yellow cake with chocolate icing and her name in pink letters with pink sakura petals. The blonde smiles with a few tears in her eyes and blows out her candles but feels a pull on her pants. Can I have a piece of cake? Amagi says. Fuyumi softly laughs and pulls Amagi up into her lap as then cuts a piece of cake for her. Kurenai, the Neo-NUGC, most of the Espada, Karen, Kushina, Akaji, Kaga and Kurama were around the room. Even Enyo and Ento came to the small party at Naruto's place. Even small. This is the best birthday ever, Fuyumi thought, feeding Amagi cake and eating some herself. Naruto watches Fuyumi enjoying herself with Amagi as Kushina approaches. So when are you dealing with the beasts? She asks. A few days from now, Naruto replies, as a few sips of punch. I wish I could see it, Kushina muses, her draconic eyes on Kurenai and undressing the ruby Ikunoichi with her eyes. You're not the only one, Naruto muses. The party continues as Fuyumi thoroughly enjoys her and also her presents from the Neo-NUGC as Anko got several sword-style instructions from her tribe's elders that coincide with what her sister showed her. Tsunade and Mei got her a custom-made sheath for Void Dancer but also a similar harness for them. Kaguya has a special medallion made to help with her chakra but ward off illness. Konan and her fellow Sannin also a few others in Espada would take her into a gate as a present and the spoils would be hers. Kurenai got her a heart-shaped necklace with their pictures inside and adorned with small diamond, thanks to Kushina and secretly Naruto. The party starts to wind down and Naruto takes Fuyumi to the roof of his mansion with a bottle of vodka from Lightning Country. Here's to being adults, Naruto says, pouring each of them a glass and handing one to her. Naruto raises his glasses to her. Repeat after me. Salud, he says and Fuyumi repeats it, as they clink glasses to down their shots. Strong, Fuyumi says. Naruto pours himself another and pours Fuyumi one. Anko and Tsunade prefers sake but I like my liquor cold, he muses, downing his bigger glass with ease. Fuyumi looks up at the night sky and it is beautiful, thank you, she says. For what? Naruto asks. For everything. You've done so much for me in such a short time, Fuyumi says, downing her shot. You're my sister and you deserve to be happy, Naruto says, lighting a cigarette with a puff of smoke and downing of his drink. I think it's time you learn about our father's sordid past, Naruto adds and Fuyumi looks his way. He has more children than us and Kawaki, Fuyumi says and Naruto shakes his head, before tapping his right eye. It's the reason we possess the Sharingan, Naruto says and this gets her attention. It's something that the Hokage and Jiraiya have tried to keep a secret. Because it would cause an upheaval with the Uchiha, he adds. Upheaval how? Fuyumi asks, as Naruto fills her shot glass. Our great-grandfather is Madara Uchiha, Naruto replies and Fuyumi's eyes widen as her breath hitches. Madara Uchiha, Fuyumi says and Naruto nods, gulping down his vodka. Yep, the big bad himself, the man who betrayed Hashirama Senju and Konoha. The village they created, he's been a stain on the village's image since his battle with Hashirama, Naruto says. He wasn't even mentioned in the academy. Only that he was Konoha's greatest traitor, Fuyumi says. Naruto blows a large cloud of smoke with a look to the sky. Now just imagine. If it was revealed that Konoha's greatest Hokage was the grandson of Konoha's greatest traitor, he says. It could tear the village apart, Fuyumi says. Indeed. So once Jiraiya learned that dad possessed the Sharingan and traced it back. He and the monkey kept a secret. No one knows. Not even his advisors know, Naruto says. Do you think they'll tell Kawaki? Fuyumi asks. Not unless he awakens it, Naruto replies, pouring her another shot. Fuyumi stares at the clear liquor but sighs, I'm related to Sasuke in some manner. That sort of ruins my birthday a little bit, she says, downing it quickly and Naruto snorts. Well, how about this to bring your spirits back up? Naruto says and pours her another shot, I'm going to test the three beasts in a few days. How bad do you want me to hurt Jiraiya? He adds and Fuyumi's breath hitches. However, she thought about how Jiraiya treated her and mother over her young life, badly, Fuyumi says and clinks her drink with her brother, causing him to chuckle. Valley of End. Naruto sits with his back on a large boulder between the imposing statues of Hashirama and Madara with his right leg resting on his left knee, his upper body hidden in the shadows and his arms folded with a cigarette in his mouth. He wears black riding boots with white hybrid Hakama ninja pants, a skin-tight and long-sleeved shirt. Lastly, a white with black trim dress uniform jacket with two long tails and a beaked hood. My liege, they are here, Bellion says, from Naruto's shadow. He opens his eyes and leans back to look, seeing the three beasts appearing via Shunshin with Jiraiya in the middle, having Shirahoshi on his left and Orochimaru on his right. The snake beast stands wearing a black Hakama with sandals, a dark undershirt with a loose kimono jacket having long sleeves. Jiraiya wears his green marital arts fighting gi with his red hori having two yellow circles and Geta sandals. Shirashoshi wears a thin but sleeveless bodysuit under a loose furred kimono of a colorful scheme of colors and kunoichi sandals. I didn't think you would come, Naruto says, his voice carrying in the valley. You ungrateful brat, you have some nerve, Jiraiya snaps, anger evident in his face and body language. Jiraiya is right, even if that bitch gave birth to you. You have Minato to thank for your power, Shirahoshi sneers and Naruto snorts, taking a drag and blowing smoke. Hiruzen has filled your heads with delusion. Konoha and by extension Fire Country are in decline. You have no S-class in the generation after you or the one after that or the one after that. The other nations cultivate their hunters, while Konoha relies on the past to fund their future, Naruto says. Enough, we didn't come here to talk. You wanted to test our mettle. Well, we are here, brat. I'll show you the power that helped cultivate the first SS-class hunter, Jiraiya shouts. Naruto shakes his head with a sigh with a look over the three. What gave you the impression? I would be fighting you. It would be like bullying the weak, he says and his eyes glow purple. Arise, Naruto says and the three beasts bristle, as Naruto's shadow gurgles and bursts out. Bellion, Igris and Beast slowly appear to kneel before their liege as Naruto rises to his feet. Defeat them and then I'll consider facing you, Naruto says, relocating to Madara's head. Music. Mick Gordon, Gladiator. The three beasts Konoha glare at their opponents. I'll take the one in the middle, Jiraiya says, looking at Bellion. Orochimaru sets his gaze on Igris and Shirahoshi settles for Beast. Don't waste time on them, she says, slipping out of her kimono and letting it hang from her waist. Slowly her body gains girth but also gains muscle as her visible skin becomes golden brown, her nails becoming sharper. Her face becomes more and more lion-like with a dark mane forming from her hair and a long tail ripping through her bodysuit. I won't. Jiraiya snaps, summon Ma and Pa. The two toads with one being a green toad with white hair styled in somewhat of a mohawk, very thick eyebrows and a small goatee with a gray cape. The other has a green underside with purple marking around her mouth and the back of her body. The top of her head looks as though she is wearing a hair net with hair rollers underneath with a dark cape. Why have you summoned us, Jiraiya boy? Pa says and Jiraiya points toward Bellion but also Naruto above them. I need to put Minato's brat in his place but I need to get past him, Jiraiya explains. That thing seems very dangerous, Ma says, as both toads attach to his shoulders. Jiraiya's body slowly shifts to a more toad-like in appearance, such as warts and webbed hands but also his feet, the red marking on his face spread to encompass his eyes. Orochimaru regurgitates his sword of Kusanagi with his snake-like eyes on Igris, while the former Crimson Knight draws his sword. Try not to kill them, Naruto shouts. We won't, you brat, Jiraiya shouts, as the three beasts rocket towards their opponents. Shirahoshi and Beast meet in test of strength as the ground spiderwebs around them. Orochimaru swings flurry of strikes as Igris parries and moves them away from the other battles but Bellion doesn't move as he stares at Jiraiya, preparing to slam a fist into his body. Take this, Jiraiya shouts, slamming a right straight enhanced by Senjutsu. The blow slams into Bellion and passes through him to shatter a rock behind him. So this the power of Senjutsu, Bellion says, shocking Jiraiya. He can talk, Pa says, as Bellion raises his left fist. Jiraiya, watch out, Ma shouts and Jiraiya barely dodges Bellion's fist as it shatters the ground. Jiraiya grits his teeth with flickering eyes at Bellion's towering form. He shook off my fist powered by Senjutsu, he thought. Shirahoshi roars in Beast's face to destroy his eardrums, but it has no effect to her shock as he lifts her to bullrush them into the forest, through several trees. Naruto watches with a stream of smoke from his cigarette as the three beasts were being embarrassed by his soldiers, Bellion. Beast and Igras are comparable to S-rank hunters, Zetsue muses. I expected more from them, Naruto thought. They let the fact that they are S-class go to their heads. S-class is a pinnacle, but you shouldn't just stop there. Your father was SS class and you are unranked, but that because you were Monarch and surpass the scale, Zetsue says, and Naruto chuckles, seeing Jiraiya attempting to use Toad Song with Ma and Pa but failing against Bellion. Oil and wind, Ma and Pa, Jiraiya shouts. Pa spews oil and Ma spew wind as Jiraiya weaves signs with a large inhale. Kaden, Dienden, Jiraiya thought, firing a stream of fire. The three combine into a massive flame blast to engulf Bellion, but the Toad Sage is forced to dodge Bellion whips sword. Senpo. Odama Rasengan. Jiraiya roars, slamming the Rasengan into Bellion, but he tanks it. Jiraiya lands with wide eyes, but Bellion closes the gap and slashes open the Toad Sage's chest, before his whip sword wraps around the sage and slams him down with a thud. Jiraiya spews up blood with a grit of teeth, but two more thuds echo and he sees an unconscious Shirahoshi, followed by Orochimaru with his right arm bent at an odd angle. Naruto lands behind his soldiers and makes his way to the three and squats down to grab Jiraiya by his white hair, a shit-eating grin on his face, and blows a stream of smoke in his face. I've won and you've lost, but the question is why, Naruto says and smirks. It's because I have yet to hit my prime. While all three of you are well past yours. I wanted to see the power of the infamous three beasts, he adds, rising to his full height. And I have to say, I'm not impressed. I got my hopes up for nothing, Naruto says, pocketing his hands and spits out his cigarette. Jiraiya glares at Naruto with hatred in his eyes as the monarch turns on his heels. See you at Glacier. I hope you do better than this, Naruto says, taking a few steps but snapping his fingers and looking back. Bellion. Break both his arms for Fuyumi, Naruto adds. Bellion releases Jiraiya to grab his arms. Fuyumi. She's just as much of a Jiraiya says but screams as Bellion snaps his arms at the elbow. Naruto snaps his fingers again as a large dark void rips open in front him as Bellion follows his lord with Beast and Igras. You lack training, Bellion says, stepping through the void. Song ends. Hiruzen stifles the rage inside his body as he stares at the broken bodies of his three beasts, his legacy, his mark on the world and proof of his power, but three were bested not even by Naruto. Danzo is also in the room with his visible eye on the three broken beasts. They have let their vices be a detriment to them, he says. They are still S-class hunters, Hiruzen says, rage in his tone. And the boy surpasses that. We've let our hunters become lax in their training. Kakashi Hatake languishes in A-class. Might Guy has hit a wall. Your own son teeters between A-class and below. The only one from the generation behind them is Kimimaro Kaguya, but his illness holds him back, Danzo says. Don't you think I know that? Hiruzen hisses. Then what are you going to do about it? Glacier is in a few months and we cannot back out. Orochimaru and Fugaku need to bring us some of these Yoma so we can bolster our forces. Also the clan heirs need to up their training and breakthrough, Danzo says, but Hiruzen leaves his shadow to stew in his office and attempt to drink things away. Danzo enters the hospital room and sees Orochimaru awake. How powerful are these soldiers that Uzumaki commands, Danzo says. Comparable to us. The one I fought is skilled with or without the sword, Orochimaru replies, and Danzo grips his cane. You must get us a Yoma from Glacier, Danzo says. I plan to. It may be the cure to Kimimaro's illness and allow him to become an S-class hunter, Orochimaru says. In another part of Konoha, Shikamaru is sitting in Akamichi barbecue with a few members of the Rookie 9 or 8 as Fuyumi has left Konoha to move to Uzushio. I wonder how Fuyumi is doing, Choji asks, grilling a pound of meat. Who knows? Wasn't her birthday a few days ago, Shikamaru says. I believe so, Shino says. I hope Fuyumi-chan is doing well, Lee says, eating some noodles with his meat. Who cares if she's doing well? She's gone and we don't need to think about her, Ino says, and Shikamaru stares at her but shakes his head. Mendoku-say, regardless of your feelings, I just hope she's doing alright, Shikamaru says. She ran away because she can't deal with Kawaki becoming Chunin before her, Ino says. Shino stares at her fellow rookies present in thought. She was supposed to die within that gate but survived. Could she become a danger to the hive, she thought. Kawaki-kun is younger than us, Lee says. He should be someone to be inspired by, Shino comments. See, Shino gets it. We're better off without Fuyumi. She is the Yondaime's daughter yet she's not that strong, Ino says. Shikamaru tunes out his childhood friend and thinks about things going forward. In a few months there will an expedition to Glacier Island. Site of an S-class break so many years ago. And someone around our age will be participating, he thought. Land of Snow. 6 months later. Naruto blows a stream of smoke with his hands in his pockets of his white hybrid Hakama ninja pants. He also wears black riding boots with a skin-tight and long-sleeve shirt. Lastly, a white with black trim dress uniform jacket with 2 long tails and a beaked hood, all outfitted with seals to keep him warm. He, Tsunade and Nagato were stepping off a ship as numerous other ships were docking or preparing to depart. Over there, Nagato says, wearing his shinobi shozuko and his Akatsuki coat. Miria is standing with a sign having a spot on it as the three approach. Welcome to Snow Country, she says. Good to see you, Miria, Tsunade says. She wears form-fitting white pants with riding boots, a white kimono blouse with no sleeves and a black obi but also a short-sleeved black juban underneath. On the left hip of her pants is 3 in Old English with a jacket similar to Naruto. Follow me and we'll head to the meeting area, Miria says. The three follow her to a carriage and get inside. Have there been any changes to the island? Naruto asks. The Yoma have made no moves to leave the island, but Najinda believes they could be waiting for us, or namely our ships, Miria says, as the carriage takes off. That could cause a serious issue, Nagato says. Indeed, we could be walking a trap if the Yoma have evolved to possess high intelligence, Naruto says. The carriage soon falls into silence, but the journey soon ends as they arrive at Lady Koyuki's palace. Any other countries have decided to get involved? Tsunade asks, as they step out of the carriage. Iron Country has sent Ieyasu Tokugawa and his bodyguards Honda Tadakatsu and Yasuki, Miria says. The palace is bustling with activity as Naruto sees some of the players from the meeting in Hot Spring. Miria leads them to the throne room to meet with Koyuki and Najinda, but Naruto could see people watching him. Some must be sensitive to magical energy, Zetsue comments. It's rare for so many S-rank hunters to be one place. Some don't compress their power, Naruto thought. The four soon reach the throne room just as Ieyasu, Honda and Yasuki were exiting with a friend of Miria named Jean. This is Jean. She will be assigned to your group, Miria says. Jean has silver eyes with short pale blonde hair that is slicked neatly back with a few strands hanging in her face, wearing a black suit. So this is the infamous daimyo of Uzushio, Ieyasu says. He is a young man with brown hair in a faux hawk and dark eyes, wearing a black and yellow hakama with brown boots. A long-sleeve black shirt with only the right sleeve and a sleeveless black-yellow jacket with a hood. I hope we can get along, Ieyasu says, extending his hand. Naruto takes Ieyasu's hand with a firm handshake and a smile. A pleasure to meet you, Naruto says, glancing to the imposing Honda. He wears a full-plate samurai armor of a brown color with kabutomushi helmet and oni mask over his face, but one could see his dark eyes. These are my bodyguard Honda Todakatsu and Yasuki, Ieyasu says. Honda only blows out some steam with a grunt and Yasuki extends his hand. A pleasure, Yasuki says. He is a tall and dark-skinned man having his black hair in braids with light-tinted markings on his upper body. He wears a black hakama with boots, a navy blue robe with the arm openings being untorn and 2 swords on his waist. Likewise, Naruto says, I'll escort them in Miria. Since Ieyasu-sama is your assigned charge, Jean says. Thank you, Jean. Please follow me, Ieyasu-sama, and I'll get you and your party to your room, Miria says, before the 2 groups split and Naruto's group enter the throne room. It has marble columns in an icy blue color with several banners, and seated on the throne is Koyuki Kazuhana. She has fair skin with long black hair with bangs that swept on each side of her face and violet blue eyes. She wears teal and blue furred kimono and brown boots, Naruto Uzumaki. Daimyo of Uzushio. It is nice to put a face to the name, Koyuki says. The same Lady Koyuki. These are my comrades Tsunade Senju and Nagato Uzumaki, Naruto says. The Queen of Elixirs and one of the Densetsu no Sanin, Najinda says, one of her eyes hidden by an eye patch. She has pixie silver hair and purple eyes, wearing a black 3-piece suit and a matching trench coat on her shoulders. I came prepared, Naruto says. Najinda then clears her throat to take a professional stance. The joint forces will be leaving tomorrow at 8 am and begin their journey to Glacier. Once in range, ships will begin their bombardment and drop ships will make their way to the island itself, she explains. Any specific part of the island will we land on? Nagato asks. None in particular, but the goal is to reach the center city of Pieta and kill any Yoma you encounter, but to be weary of the awakened beings, Najinda replies. We'll be on guard, Naruto says. Thank you for taking this endeavor, Lord Naruto, Koyuki says, and Naruto nods his head. Jean will escort you to your room and dinner will be brought 5 p.m., she adds. The 3 follow Jean and she leads to the eastern wing of the palace. I will come get you at 6 am to begin preparation, she says, and Naruto nods, before she excuses herself with a turn on her heels. The room is large enough for 3 to be comfortable with 2 bedrooms and a sitting area. The three Uzushio hunters take out their gear from various seals on their bodies. How are we tackling this? Nagato asks. Naruto takes a seat, a comfy recliner, and slips a cigarette into his mouth. We head straight for Pita and kill any Yoma in our path. The strongest should be in the town itself, he says. What about Konoha? Tsunade says. I'll have 2 shadows on them. They make a move to take any Yoma for themselves. Well, they won't be returning, Naruto says. Dinner arrived as scheduled and it was a nice meal of baked chicken, fish, rice, steak, salad and wine. Nagato took one room and Naruto took the other, with the daimyo putting up a silencing seal to keep Nagato from hearing the night before battle pumps. Glacier Island, Pieta, hidden away in the former capital of Glacier, several awakened beings were meeting. Former experiments of Dodo Kazuhana sent to die on the island but survived by feeding on other Yoma and growing stronger as time passed. Soon the humans will attack, a regal voice says. He has long silver hair and ice blue eyes, wearing white pants having gray wrapping down to black shoes with a black belt. A long-sleeve dark blue shirt with silver wrapping around his forearm and a light blue cape having silver-like feather motifs on the top and lower edges. Then we'll have a way to leave this forsaken island easily, a second but feminine voice says. She has pale skin with pale, silvery blonde hair in a long and tight braid, with her hairline having a strong widow's peak. She wears greenish skirt with a silver robe covering her upper body and long claymore sword. Hear that, Doff? Soon we'll be free to do as we wish, another feminine voice says. She is small in stature with long blonde hair which surpass her shoulders and reaches her upper torso, wearing a pink sundress despite the cold. We can eat more humans, Riffle, Doff says. He is tall and muscular man with short blonde hair and a beer belly stomach. He wears black pants with brown boots and a long-sleeve gray shirt. We cannot underestimate these humans, Rigardo comments. He is young man with dark hair and lifeless silver ears, wearing intricate armor and clothes. Rigardo is correct. Each time the humans have tried to take back the island, they gotten stronger, Isley says. Then they'll be stronger meals, Ophelia says. Indeed. For now return to your territories and prepare your forces, Isley says, before dismissing them. Do you believe that the humans know about the gate? Rigardo says, once the others were gone. Isley crosses his legs and runs his finger along the sword across his lap. I don't believe so, he says. The sword is a curved katana, its hilt wrapped in white and plasma green with a jagged design down the blade in the same plasma green color, and the guard is round and imprinted with a eastern dragon in a hazy mirage. Legia believes someone of considerable power is coming. So keep your senses trained on it and inform Lucilla of things, Isley says, and Rigardo bows at the waist, before excusing. I believe soon things will change, Isley thought. The day of judgment has come as numerous ships make their way towards Glacier Island for some believed to be the final expedition to the island and cleanse their respective countries' failure of allowing things to go to this point. Naruto stands with his arms folded, wearing white hybrid Hakama ninja pants with black riding boots. A skin-tight and long-sleeve black shirt with a high-collar white mini jacket having black trim. He has Zetsue in her harness with trench knives and an armored white glove on his left hand with an armored black glove on his right hand. Do you think any of them can fly? Tsunade says, wearing her Espada uniform but adding some armored gloves like Naruto. That's why they have some hunters stationed on ships, Naruto says, blowing some smoke. Jean approaches in a bodysuit with a leather outfit and a large claymore sword on her back with Nagato trailing behind her. The shelling is about to begin, she says, handing Naruto a pair of binoculars. He could see the remains of a harbor with a boat nearly capsized as the ships start to open fire on the island, before looking up and trying to find Deidara. Let's head below to the landing craft, Jean says. Naruto spits out his cigarette and 3 Espada follow Jean below to the lower level of the ship. Crewmen were preparing the land craft for deployment. We're ready, one says. Each of get aboard the craft and prepares to cast off. Deploy, another shouts. The craft hits the water and takes off at full speed towards the island as several more do the same. The shelling continues as explosions hit the landscape and destroy many of the weaker Yoma in the process. Throughout the island, Doff, Riffle, Ophelia, Lucilla and Rigardo were preparing for the assault. 20 seconds to landfall, Jean shouts. Naruto steadies his breath as the craft comes to a violent halt and the 4 leap from the craft onto the shore. It is desolate as Naruto looks around. Nagato, bring out your armors, he says. Nagato weaves signs and slams his hand into the sand. Kuchio's no jutsu, he shouts, and 6 puffs of smoke erupt. The smoke dies down to reveal 6 armors, with the first being red and blue with 2 curved white horns. The second is green with a section of blue and 2 golden horns with a long sword. Third is sky blue and light blue chest section with a single horn on top having a trident-like weapon. The fourth armor is orange and brown with small horns on the shoulder pauldrons and a half-moon horns on the helmet with a spear-like weapon. The fifth armor is dark blue with 2 golden horns with golden bow, The sixth and final armor is a combination of white, black, and yellow with its helmet having 6 horns, 2 of the gold and the remaining 4 are white. Ready, Nagato says. Naruto cracks his knuckles and rolls his neck. Any Yoma nearest Jean, he asks. Jean channels some yoki to her eyes and spreads her senses out. To the east, she says. Well then, let's head east, Naruto says and the group takes off. Music. Uki na Ken, Claymore, loop. Be ready, says, as buff silver witch named Undine. She has long pale hair that is tucked behind her ears and silver eyes, wearing the standard uniform the silver witches. It consists of a white bodysuit and leather outfit with her having 2 claymore swords on her back. Accompanying Undine were several nondescript silver witches and rankers Flora and Veronica. Do you think the others are all right? Flora says. She has a childlike face with silver eyes, light blonde hair that falls to her chest in soft waves and several locks framing her face, and hanging in front of her forehead. They are some of our stronger members, Veronica says. She has a heart-shaped face and wears her long, pale hair in a tight ponytail, leaving no fringe at the front. The group slowly enter a forest with their senses primed but it wouldn't save them. Here they come, Undine shouts, grabbing her swords and her comrades do the same. Several Yoma erupt from the forest and the Silver Eye Witches go to work and start to cut down the Yoma. Hidden in the trees Rigardo watches with his blank eyes on them, each of them are like us. Failed experiments, he thought. Undine spots Rigardo and blitzes towards him to shatter the tree he is standing on, so it's one of our targets. Rigardo, she says, knowing who I am, you were still sent in. How foolish, Rigardo says, closing eyes and flexing his red aura in a swirling gust of energy. This immediately puts the group on edge and they use their yoki to prepare for the fight as Rigardo become a humanoid lion with a wolf's elongated snout and is 3 meters in height. Rigardo vanishes with a blink of an eye and appears in front of Veronica. First one, he hisses, tearing her apart with his claws. Veronica, Flora shouts, rushing forward and using her windcutter technique but Rigardo dodges as she knocks down several trees in the process. Interesting technique. The speed of your draw is godlike, Rigardo says, praising her technique. Flora keeps her hand on her sword and rushes toward Rigardo as he cuts 2 more of her comrades. He may be too powerful for us. He may have evolved by eating other Yoma, she thought. Rigardo dodges her windcutter once again and appears behind Undine with his right claw raised but she blocks with both her swords. Oh, quite impressive, but, Rigardo says, griping her blades with his large hand and shears off her arms at the elbow. Undine staggers back with wide eyes but she too is cut to pieces by Rigardo's claws. Deniv, she thought, before passing away. Rigardo roars and sends forth his aura as this halts Flora but her eyes widen as his claw is in her forehead, before he splits her vertically and the remaining silver witches stood no chance. No sport at all, Rigardo says, as several Yoma appear and descend on the corpses as the Silver Eye Lion King vanishes. Song ends. Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu, Fugaku shouts, firing a large blast of fire but snapping his fingers as well to make it split and explode into several Yoma. Orochimaru uses his snakes and Kusanagi sword to kill Yoma but is under the watchful eye of Yuma, their silver witch guide. The Konoha group had made landfall near the eastern shore of the island and didn't make any contact until now. These Yoma are indeed strange creatures, Orochimaru says, pulling his sword free from one. Yuma sweeps the blood off of her claymore. They are a dark secret of Yuki. The previous daimyo took advantage of the dungeon break and we Silver Eye Witches pay the price to this day, she says. Fu. A dark secret indeed, a voice says. Yes sister, indeed a dark secret, a second voice adds. The 3 go on guard as a young woman with long brown hair in twin tails and wearing a long ruffled dress appears from out of nowhere. Who are you? Fugaku shouts. Her name is Lucilla, Yuma says, fear in her tone but Lucilla tilts her head. You forgot my sister Rafaela, Lucilla says, tearing open her dress to reveal a second head where her left should be. The head has her hair in a spiky blonde bob with one silver eye and the other hidden by the flesh of her twin sister. Yes sister, they forgot about me, Rafaela says. Cuckoo. Amazing, 2 people inhabiting one body. Conjoined twins but for one of them to appear in such a state. We must acquire her or them, Orochimaru thought. Fugaku, try your wicked on them. All 3 of them, Orochimaru says, dropping all pretext of alliance. Fugaku quickly activates his Mangekyo Sharingan in the form of 3 dots followed by 3 curves spiraling counter-clockwise around the pupil and uses Genjutsu on Yuma, Lucilla and Rafaela. Cuckoo. Sensei will be most pleased, Orochimaru says. How will we get them off the island without them knowing? Fugaku says but before Orochimaru could reply, heavy ki and aura erupts. Both look to see Lucilla transforming before their very eyes. Was that supposed to capture me? Lucilla says. She now resembles a large humanoid with feline hind legs, a cat-like head with 2 gaping jaws, one atop the other, gold cat-like eyes, jagged, bony plates along her back, thighs and elbows, and twin tails. These twin tails are long, muscular and covered in mouths with razor-sharp teeth. She rockets forward towards Orochimaru, but he uses Kawarimi with Yuma to save himself. Ah! Yuma screams, now broken free of the genjutsu but now missing part of her upper torso. The twin tails quickly tear her apart as Fugaku weaves signs to Tiger, Kaden, Hosenka no Jutsu, he thought, firing several shuriken-shaped fireballs. Lucilla dodges the fireballs on all fours but roars in pain as several snakes burst from the ground to bite her. We'll try poison, Orochimaru says, blitzing forward to slash her a few times with his sword. More fire Fugaku, Orochimaru says, weaving signs as he appears next to him. Kaden, Ruka no Jutsu, Futon, Daitapa, both shout, creating a huge firestorm to engulf Lucilla. She roars in pain as the fire engulfs her and crashes out towards the Konoha pair but both dodge. You hurt Lucilla, Raphaela hisses, preparing to awaken. The twins explode with power to the shock of Orochimaru and Fugaku, each of them can be awakened beings, Fugaku says. The twins now have a set of razor-sharp protrusions like claws coming from their shared back, another set of jaws under the first two and more muscular hind legs. What do we do now? Fugaku says, preparing to use his strongest Kaden attack but suddenly sees his body from an upside-down perspective. Orochimaru jerks and leaps back as the twins pass him with Fugaku's head sailing from his body. She's become even faster, Orochimaru thought, landing with a skid and biting his thumbs. Kuchios. Double Rashomon, Orochimaru shouts, creating two demon gates that the twins slam into and through. The snake beast goes underground and emerges on all fours, spewing hundreds of snakes from his mouth. The twins tear through the snakes and swipe Orochimaru across the belly, spewing blood and intestines, but he opens his mouth wide to spit out a new body. Why further risk my life? Fugaku is dead but his eyes can be mine, Orochimaru says, sending his tongue to grab Fugaku's head but a blade cuts his tongue off as he reverse summons himself to the Ruchi caves. He ran away, sister, Raphaela says. Yes, he ran from us, Lucilla adds. The twins were preparing to eat the body of Fugaku, when they sense the presence of three powerful foes approaching them. The twins turn as three silver eye witches appear, but compared to their fallen sisters, these were high-ranking among their sisters. Lucilla and Raphaela, one says, having a faint smile on her face and has long, wavy, pale blonde hair parted down the middle with it flowing free. Teresa, the twins hiss. She wasn't the one to kill Undine and the others, the second says. She has short, pale, layered pixie hair that is wavy and elf-like ears with the standard attire. It was Rigardo, Cassandra, the third says. She has long, straight, flowing blonde hair with silver eyes and stands about 6 feet even, wearing the standard attire. It's time we put Lucilla and Raphaela to rest. Galatea, suppress her yoki if you are able, Teresa says, drawing her claymore. The twins roar in rage and rocket forward, but Galatea flexes her power to freeze the twins. Cassandra rushes forward and uses her Dust Eater technique as her body swings like pendulum as Teresa shoots forward. The twins with some effort swings her right claw, but Teresa dodges and slices off her hand. Rarg, the twins roar, swinging her tails, but one of her legs is sliced off by Cassandra. The twin lift off the ground as Galatea use her yoki manipulation to halt the twins for a moment. Teresa and Cassandra rush the twins and liberate Lucilla's head, before piercing Raphaela's brain through Lucilla's chest. Sister, the twins thought, before passing away. They can finally rest in peace, Cassandra says, saying a prayer for the sisters and setting them ablaze with a seal tag. Do we continue to search for Rigardo? Teresa says. I believe Rigardo will be dealt with. There are two powerful forces on this island. One I believe is Isley the Silver King, Galatea says. And the other, Cassandra asks. He's with Jean, Galatea replies. Teresa cups her chin thought as her smile widens slightly, then Rigardo and Isley won't see tomorrow. Well then let's search for Riffle and put an end to her, she says, and her comrades nod their heads, as they vanish with the snow starting to fall lightly. In the village of Pietà and hidden the remains of the mayor's home, Isley slowly opens his eyes amid the shadows of his room. Lucilla and Raphaela have fallen, he thought.